I have a mobile phone in my Dantian. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401, Decisive Battle, 9 Crowns. In the Void Spectator Seat, many high-level officials of the Nine Realms ancient country gathered here, and the Lord of the Nine Realms was looking at the projection in front of him with excitement. The next is the decisive battle, to upgrade to the 9 crowns. In this battle, Sudong must not be careless, because the opponent he faces is very strong. The Lord of the Nine Realms looked solemn. Qi Jiuang of the Six Suns ancient country. Many other strong men felt pressure. Qi Jiuang, since entering the Yellow Spring Road, has begun to shine. His excellence is recognized by the entire void, from the Divine Emperor to the heavenly gods and immortals. He is the strongest in the Yellow Spring Road, no one else. As for the swordsman Sudong, he began to shine after performing the 12 heavenly swordsmanship. What followed was a continuous victory and crushing all the way. His ferocity is not inferior to Qi Jiuang at all. These two peerless gods are about to fight. In the distant void, a vast world, the level of Divine Emperor and Immortal Emperor still needs to go to the spectator seats to watch, but the strong people of the level of Holy Spirit and Void Ancestor can directly watch. The sky supporting Void Ancestor sat casually on the tall throne, and the golden robe was lingering with strange Taoist connotations. His eyes flashed with a faint golden light. HMPH, swordsman, Zhao Zu forced you to use secret methods, and you still want to beat Qi Jiuang? He was silently watching the ranking battle in the ring in Huangquan Road. The moment Sudong defeated Zhao Zu, his face became a little ugly. If he saw this ignorant little guy really defeat Qi Jiuang and become the 9 Crown King, he would go crazy. In the Huangquan Road ring, Sudong, Silver Knife God and Thunderfire Immortal stood side by side. Swordsman, this is a last battle, to be promoted to the 9 Crown King. The whole void is paying attention to us. This feeling is really great. Thunderfire Immortal smiled and transmitted the message. Silver Knife God pouted. Don't come on, people are paying attention to the swordsman. What does it have to do with you? We are a team, we all prosper together, but swordsman, don't worry and fight. I won't drag you down. I've made it this far. I'm satisfied. Li Hoshiangson was very happy. His rank was higher than his sister Zhao Zu, which was a surprise in the ancient kingdom of divine fire. In the ancient kingdom of divine fire, there is a saying that strength is not as good as luck, and having a good teammate is worse than anything else. Sudong smiled, but the appearance of the upcoming opponent emerged in his mind. The sword god Qi Jiuang, who was wearing a red tattered robe. His hair was casually flying, and he was holding a long sword. Defeat him and become the 9 Crown King. Sudong thought silently in his heart. At the same time, Qi Jiuang, who defeated the 7 sword gods, looked at the yellow springs floating and circling on the edge of the ring. The long sword in his hand flashed a faint cold light, and his back was straight like a sword soaring into the sky. Old man. Qi Jiuang held a smile at the corner of his mouth. You let me reincarnate 9 times in the void, and I only sharpened a sword after 9 reincarnations. Just watch, I will do better than my brother. Qi Jiuang's eyes suddenly became sharp. Biting the corner of his mouth, he whispered, I, Qi Jiuang, swear that I will definitely become the Shura King of Huangquan Daofu, and then kill all those stupid, arrogant old guys. They are the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor. They are opening a mountain gate in the void. But I just need to rush into the core group of the Shura Kings of the 10 Palaces and become a 9 Crown King, or even a 19 Crown King. The day I become the Shura King of Huangquan Daofu will be their doomsday. 9 reincarnations. Only sharpening a sword. A killing sword full of hatred. Wow. A light flashed at one end of the arena where Sudong and the other 2 were. 3 figures appeared on the arena. 1 celestial being, 2 gods, and standing in the center was Qi Jiuang. Qi Jiuang is here. Sword god Qi Jiuang. The pupils of the Silver Knife god and the Thunderfire god shrank. The young man in a red tattered robe at one end of the ring had long hair flying around, and an extremely cold expression. He was the peerless genius who was shocked by countless geniuses on the Yellow Spring Road, Sword God Qi Jiuang. Since the Yellow Spring Road was opened, no genius has been able to stop his progress. The long sword in his hand swept all the way and was unmatched. Swordsman? This swordsman looks really gentle. The two companions beside Qi Jiuang, the celestial immortal Yixing, and the celestial god Xiaomu, also looked at the swordsman on the opposite side. The swordsman is most famous for the 12-layer swordsmanship he uses, which is known as the most terrifying swordsmanship in the void. This swordsman can master the 3rd layer at the celestial god level, which can be called invincible at the celestial god level. They have also seen the clips of the swordsman's battle, which are very clear. When not fighting, this swordsman is like an ordinary young man, but once he uses the swordsmanship, it is extremely terrifying. Sword God Qi Jiuang. Swordsman Sudang. Silver Sword Celestial God, Thunder Fire Celestial God, and others couldn't help but mutter in their hearts, who is stronger? It's about to start. That's Qi Jiuang. This book was recently updated on #@. Update. The swordsman looks more handsome. The swordsman. The entire void viewing area, countless gods and immortals, were watching this battle. Before the battle began, the fairies from the 9 realms ancient country, the divine fire ancient country, and the Jiuhua mountain holy land had already begun to cheer excitedly. The swordsman Sudang led the geniuses of their 2 major forces to advance triumphantly, and really attracted a large number of fans. Qi Jiuang is very strong, very strong. In the viewing area of the 9 realms ancient country, Zuan looked at the figure on the ring with burning eyes. The swordsman was his unfamiliar fellow countryman. It goes without saying that his strength was superior to that of Qi Jiuang. Qi Jiuang. He was the strongest person who walked out of the life and death battle on the same island as him. He was once eliminated by Qi Jiuang with a sword. That swordsmanship still left a shadow on him. Even though he has now mastered the secret method of the soul and soul, and has improved his strength, he still understands the gap between himself and Qi Jiuang. Pressure. Just by seeing Qi Jiuang through the projection screen in the spectator seats, one can definitely feel the pressure that is like a mountain overturning. On the ring, as 3 figures appeared, Sudang also looked at Qi Jiuang in front of him. He was a young man who looked unkempt. Although he was unkempt, he stood there, and there was an invisible sword energy emanating from him, as if standing there was a peerless and stunning divine sword. This kind of sword energy shocked Sudang's heart. He had seen Qi Jiuang fight in the projection screen before, but face to face like this, only then could he truly feel the truly terrifying momentum of this genius known as the Sword God. Sword energy soared to the sky. Gods all have spirits, and their spirits are strong. So naturally their spirits are also extremely amazing and huge. Like Qi Jiuang, the soaring sword energy emanating from him alone makes people dare not approach. When Sudang was looking at Qi Jiuang also looked at Sudang. His eyes were as bright as stars, as dazzling as the rising sun. Sudang's eyes were as deep as the endless deep sea, calm and vast, and extremely stressful. Swordsman? Qi Jiuang's young and cheerful voice sounded. Qi Jiuang? Sudang spoke. Sure enough, you can practice the 3rd level of Xian Weishan sword technique, which is very strong. But unfortunately, you met me, and I must get the special reward of the 9 Crown King. Qi Jiuang stared at Sudang. Just be an 8 Crown King with peace of mind. Sudang couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect Qi Jiuang to brag. Haha, interesting. Qi Jiuang, whose tattered robe fluttered in the wind, grinned, revealing his white teeth. A few simple words made him feel that this swordsman was an opponent worthy of attention. Of course, Sudang also felt the power of Qi Jiuang. This is momentum. Boom. At the moment when Qi Jiuang's words fell, his eyes instantly became extremely sharp, and a cold and heart-shaking sword energy instantly spread to the entire arena. The sword energy containing the sky-high sword intent directly overwhelmed Sudang and the other 2. The decisive battle has begun. Chapter 402. The knife is going crazy. The sword is mad. The sharp sword energy suddenly burst out, making people feel as if Qi Jiuang had turned into a peerless divine sword that wanted to cut through the sky and tear apart the void. What a terrible sword energy. The domain of the Silver Blade God was directly shattered by the sword energy. Countless people exclaimed. "Come on." Sudong shouted coldly. The pair of eyes on the gentle face, like a deep sea, immediately locked onto Qi Jiuang, with a boiling battle in his eyes and the sword in his hand. An extremely terrifying and violent cold sword light flashed directly from him, and the sword energy rushed into the clouds. Sudong's Xian Wei Xian Dao Fa and the sword intent contained the will of the void of heaven and earth and the universal sword way. Indestructible, nothing can be broken. The sword light split the sword energy. The sword intent cut off the sword light. In an instant, the swords and swords collided on the ring, and felt the tyranny of the other party. Boom. Boom. Incredibly sharp sword energy and sword auras flew, and sword lights and blades that wanted to cut through the heavens and earth, and dominate the void strangled. Instantly, they broke out with Sudong and Qi Jiuang as the center. The might that soared to the sky stirred the yellow spring at the edge of the ring, and the dazzling divine power shook the colorful clouds in the sky. At the same time, it submerged the four figures with their eyes wide open in fear. The two gods, Yandao and Zhamu, and the two immortals, Lei Chuo and Yi Crossing, had no power to fight back in such a collision. They were swallowed up and torn apart in an instant. It was terrible. There was no time to stop it. I was killed in seconds again. Lei Chuo was desperate. In the last 3 battles, he was killed in seconds every time. Unfortunately, no one paid attention to them. Countless eyes were focused on the ring. Sunfire soars to the sky. Break. Sword god Qi Jiuang waved the magic sword in his hand, as if he was a god above the 9 heavens, roaring, and the sword light swung into a dazzling sun, which burst into a sky-high light, and the 10,000 feet of light wanted to tear the sky apart. Under this sword technique, Sudong's double sun became more and more unfathomable. The whole person waved his palms, as if his body turned into a dark sword light that was almost invisible. The universe turns into a sword. Boom. The dark sword light split the sun, and the extremely concentrated sword light penetrated the entire ring. The violent sword intent cut a hideous gully on the ring. Kill. The sword light flashed, and the body was like lightning. The red-robed Qi Jiuang urged his body skills. His body was like lightning, like a sword across the sky, and every flash seemed to penetrate the void, and the entire extremely stable ring was penetrated in an instant. Only 2 flashes. Qi Jiuang, holding the magic sword, had already arrived in front of Sudong. The magic sword contained a sword light as vast as the morning sun, and stabbed Sudong directly. Sudong, holding a long sword, performed the void escape method, and his body produced dozens of phantoms between the seemingly invisible and the seemingly invisible. In the phantom, Sudong swung the sword. The second sword, Kai, a dark blade light reflecting the sun, moon, and stars swung out from Sudong's hand. The blade light contained the mystery of the operation of the universe. The black hole was destroying and swallowing, and the starry sky was shining brightly. Unlike the duel with Zazu, the blade light at this moment was more condensed and more powerful. In addition, it was a close combat. The gods were best at close combat. Boom. The long sword slashed at Qi Jiuang fiercely. Break. Qi Jiuang's face was cold, and he roared. The magic sword in his hand was like a long rainbow, stabbing straight at the blade light in front. Under Qi Jiuang's long sword, the power of the long rainbow was vast and brilliant. Sudong narrowed his eyes slightly, and then his sword technique changed. The dark blade light instantly deviated an inch at the moment when the sword light stabbed. The sword light and the sword light crossed each other. It was about to fall on Qi Jiuang's chest. But the long sword suddenly waved a sword flower again in an instant, appeared out of thin air in front of Sudong's long sword, and directly stabbed Sudong's long sword. The terrifying sword that reflected the sun, moon, and stars was directly picked up. The power was transmitted from the blade, and Sudong's entire wrist could not help but tremble and twist, as if it was about to break. Similarly, Qi Jiuang's body also retreated more than 3 feet. The palm holding the long sword also trembled for a moment, and the magic sword took advantage of the situation to make a sword flower, and then the power was removed. Qi Jiuang's swordsmanship is really terrible. This is the first time I have encountered it. The swordsmanship can actually be compared to the 3rd level of my Xian Wei Xiandan. One sword almost broke my swordsmanship. Sudong, who was standing there with the sword, changed his face slightly. Is this the Xian Wei Xian swordsmanship? The power is really terrible. Qi Jihuang looked down at his long sword. The sword body was trembling and humming. There was excitement in his eyes. So strong. It feels like Qi Jihuang's swordsmanship is about to break the Xian Weishan swordsmanship. No, the swordsman's Xian Weishan swordsmanship is still stronger. Countless figures in the spectator seats were all looking at the sword-wielding god figure on the ring in amazement. Qi Jihuang, ridiculously strong. On the ring, no matter how strong the swordsmanship is, it can't be as powerful as my swordsmanship. Su Dong's eyes were deep. With a cold snort, his figure suddenly turned into a phantom, and he accelerated suddenly, and the sword light tore through the sky, instantly slashed towards Qi Jihuang. Qi Jihuang did not dodge, but instead urged the magic sword to stride towards Su Dong. His figure was like lightning, and his steps followed the sword light. His body flashed strangely again and again, and he quickly approached Su Dong like a falling leaf and flying flowers. This book was recently updated in #at. Update. The sword moves lightly, but its power is always a little bit less. No matter what, we must fight him head on. Su Dong's face was calm, and he also used the void escape technique to stick to Qi Jihuang. The sword moves fiercely. The dark sword light and the sword shadows that soar into the sky burst out again and again. The clinking sound of the swords colliding is endless. The head-on confrontations again and again, each time reaching the level of the God King's power. Each time is extremely thrilling, and the slightest difference will lead to defeat in an instant. In this collision, Qi Jihuang's figure keeps flashing in all directions in the sky and on the ground. He changes direction and wants to give Su Dong a fatal blow. The attack power has reached their level. If they find a flaw, it will be the difference between life and death. While Su Dong's Xian Weishan sword technique is terrible, his body technique is a little worse. If he insists on attacking Qi Jihuang with his body technique, he will be at a disadvantage. This makes the outside world look like Qi Jihuang is suppressing Su Dong. Su Dong seemed to be at a disadvantage. They were all gods, good at close combat, and a fatal blow only took a moment. This Qi Jihuang has such a powerful body movement. Su Dong used the void escape body movement, but he could only barely keep up with the latter, so he was completely at a disadvantage. Fortunately, the power of the Xian Weishan sword skill was strong, and the threat of the sword skills was greater. Qi Jihuang was forced not to take too many risks to attack. This swordsman's sword skills are too powerful, and his body movement is not weak either. Qi Jihuang seemed to have the upper hand, but he was anxious in his heart. The gods I usually meet don't have body movements, but their sword skills are so powerful. The strength of a god is comprehensively evaluated. If the power is strong, but the body movement is weak, it is a living target. But Su Dong moved very fast. His sword skills and attacks were dodged or blocked by the sword light every time by Su Dong. You know, defense is more labor saving than attack. After all, they are both gods. How long can the attack that inspires the power of the God King level last? The battle on the ring was fierce. The gods and immortals in the spectator seats were stunned. Two peerless gods. The swordsman Su Dong's swordsmanship is terrifying, known as the most terrifying in the void. The third level of swordsmanship is unmatched, forcing Qi Jihuang to retreat again and again. Qi Jihuang activated the magic sword, and his swordsmanship was equally powerful, and his swordsmanship was light and agile. The combination of swordsmanship and body skills. Every attack is like a graceful dance, extremely elegant and breathtaking. Sword and sword duel. Different styles. But they are all seeking a fatal blow in a tightrope-like battle. Countless gods and immortals, even the immortal king, stared wide-eyed. This battle is wonderful and breathtaking. Chapter 403, The Universe and the Stars as a Knife. Qi Jihuang is too strong. If the swordsman has a slower reaction, the might of the divine sword will pierce him, and he will be finished. The swordsman is strong. Every time he swings his sword and collides head-on, Qi Jihuang has to retreat instantly. Even if his swordsmanship is extremely high, and he can perfectly remove the might of the swordsmanship, the residual might will still cause damage to his divine body. In the spectator seats, countless strong people speculated and commented, which was different from their outside eyes. Su Dong and Qi Jihuang, who were fighting on the ring, felt the strength and terror of each other. The divine light of the sword shuttled like lightning. The might of the God King was as exciting as thunder. It lasted only for a cup of tea and then stopped quickly. The two figures crossed each other. Qi Jiuang stood where Sudong was originally, and Sudong stood opposite him. Qi Jiuang stood with his back straight, with divine light and sharp sword light dancing in his eyes, silently looking at Sudong on the opposite side of the ring. And Sudong also stood with a sword in his hand, and did not continue to attack. My sword. Qi Jiuang frowned slightly. The divine sword in his hand was trembling and humming. He even felt pain in his palm holding the divine sword. The palm was torn, and blood was faintly visible. One after another head-on confrontation. Every time the divine sword and the swordsman's sword light collided, it was very terrifying. If it were an ordinary god, the swordsman's sword would be chopped into pieces. The 12-fold sword technique of the outer world is famous in the void, which is very powerful. Like before, Sudong used the third level of the outer world sword technique. With one swing of the sword, the opponent's body was directly split into two and shattered. It is known as the most terrifying sword technique in the void. With the increase of Sudong's extreme mode, how powerful is it? And Qi Jiuang. Qi Jiuang's swordsmanship is too high, plus his body is too elegant and light, and every sword shows an extremely profound mystery. The two sword gods, who are both at the top level of the gods in terms of skills, collided head-on. The power of the King of Gods burst out for a long time. I can't go on like this. If I continue like this, my power will be exhausted. Qi Jiuang, with long hair flying, stared at Sudong. I used the power of the magic sword to attack him. Each sword consumed a lot of power, while he only swung the sword to defend. In terms of power consumption, I was at a disadvantage. Sudong, who was standing in a black robe and holding a sword, was also secretly shocked. Qi Jiuang's violent attack was too terrible. He could only passively defend. He understood the principle that, if he defended for a long time, he would lose. As long as my sword and body skills deviated a little, and my reaction was a little slow, I might die. If it weren't for his solid foundation of Tush's physical body, and his will consciousness was the core data consciousness, he could always remain absolutely calm. Then a slight change in his state of mind could bring about a devastating blow. Ordinary people, even gods, would have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and would be anxious and fearful. Anyone facing a violent attack would feel pressure, and when the pressure was great, flaws might appear. And the mentality of ordinary people was obviously not as stable as Sudong's Tush physical body mentality and core data will consciousness. Trouble. Both of them felt it was difficult. Qi Jiuang had already consumed a lot of divine power, and he dared not continue to attack like crazy. Sudong's body movement was suppressed, and the power of his swordsmanship could not be fully bombarded on Qi Jiuang. If you defend for too long, you will lose. He was also looking for a way in his heart. This short pause made countless gods and immortals in the entire spectator seat hold their breath and watch the two. It was extremely quiet. Many powerful people from the 9 realms ancient country, the divine fire ancient country, and the Jiuhua mountain holy land could not help but concentrate. Even if they were the divine emperors and immortal emperors, even if they were at the level of the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor, they could not deduce what the outcome of this battle would be. They could only wait nervously. In the mysterious and vast space of the Yellow Spring Road, there was a floating island in the center of the endless Yellow Spring. On the floating island, there was a towering and majestic sky city. The sky city was guarded by countless gods. In a towering palace in this giant sky city, blue and purple flames were flowing, and the bones of various powerful gods covered the entire ground. In the front, there was a winding black dragon bone skull that was more than 10,000 feet long. Above the skull was a huge throne. There were 10 thrones in total. The vast spiritual energy and unparalleled Tao essence were floating in this palace, causing shocking fluctuations. This kind of Tao essence naturally gave the entire towering palace a strange atmosphere. In front of the throne, there was a huge water light curtain flowing, and the light curtain was reflecting the arena in the underworld. On the arena were Sudong and Qi Jiuang. These two little guys. Not bad. A short woman with a hunched body on the throne, covered in a black cloth, spoke. Well, not bad. Mrs. Jiang, Lord of the Mansion, you two have too low vision. With this strength, you can't even rank in the top 10 among those monsters who have triggered the king's order. Black God, don't ask for too much. Old cow, think it's not bad. On the 10 thrones, there were figures of strong men of different heights and heights. Some of their breaths were cold, some were hot, some were frightening, and some were extremely gentle. This group of people had extremely long lifespans. In the entire Huanquindeo mansion, they were appreciated by the 10 palace Ashura kings, immortal and indestructible, and they occupied the top positions under the command of the 10 palace Ashura kings, which had been constant since ancient times. Shura king was a rank stipulated by Huanquindeo mansion. Some Holy Spirit void ancestors were Shura kings. Some divine emperors could also be Shura kings. Legend has it that even those at the level of divine kings could become Shura kings. Any Shura king was a symbol of great strength, except for the 10 palace Ashura kings, which had been constant since ancient times and would last forever. There are no more, no less than 10. The great 10 palace Ashura kings will change during this period, but their positions will always remain constant. The 10 palace Ashura kings all have tremendous power in Huanquindeo. It's boring. Let's wait and see the final king selection. This book has been updated recently in .. Update. I hope there will be surprises. The strong man who looked like an ox or a horse shook his head. There was also a middle-aged man dressed as a scholar who watched meticulously. They were all very casual. In the ring, Sudong and Qiji Huang only stopped for a moment and started a crazy fight again. The ring was constantly shrinking, and the smaller the ring space, the more disadvantageous it was for Qiji Huang, who was good at body suppression. Of course, Sudong, who relied on body reaction to dodge, also relied on space to move. Since it can't be delayed, it's time to burst out with all your strength. Burst. Sudong's eyes flashed with a deep and unfathomable luster like the abyss. This Qiji Huang is the most powerful opponent he has ever encountered. It is the best whetstone. It is the benchmark that can sharpen the limit of his swordsmanship realm. So it's time to burst out all his swordsmanship. Sudong swung his sword fiercely, and the sword light condensed on the blade and pointed at Qiji Huang. Boom. A dark space suddenly unfolded above the entire ring like a scroll. The boundless universe, the dazzling starry sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, the rotation and distortion, the black hole star explosion and evolution. This scene made countless strong people in the entire spectator seat, the gods, and even the many holy spirits who secretly watched this battle, all brightened up. This swordsmanship. Qiji Huang's face showed shock. The swordsmanship evolved the entire universe and the void. How high is the swordsman's swordsmanship attainment, and how high is his deduction and understanding? Exclamation mark. The entire ring was shrouded in an endless starry sky. The third sword. Sudong gritted his teeth, and his face was finally no longer calm. At this moment, he seemed to become hideous and terrifying. He swung the long sword in his hand with all his strength, supporting the entire starry sky scroll. The third level of the 12-layered heaven sword technique also depends on proficiency when it is used. The higher the proficiency, the stronger the power. When you first enter, you can only crush the level of the silver sword god. When you are proficient, you can reach the level comparable to the female fairy Zhaozu, who can instantly kill the Guangain Hao, and complete evolution and mastery. This is a level. The third level is the universal sword, which completely evolves the entire universe and starry sky with one sword. It is different from the universe sword, but the sword light becomes the universe. The mystery of the operation of the universe is completely concentrated and compressed on one sword. This sword has exceeded the scope of swordsmanship. This is a universe and a starry sky. This sword is extremely powerful. This sword is qualified to be called the universal sword. The power rushes into the void, and the universe and starry sky are one sword. Chapter 404, Sword Unsheathed, Void Shocked. Sudong had already started studying the third level of the heavenly sword technique in the eternal space and time, but he could not gain experience by working behind closed doors. The island ranking battles one after another allowed him to hone his sword skills. It was nothing to initially master the universal sword. Only by mastering the universal sword can one be called the strongest of the void gods. Every battle in the past did not push me to the limit, but this Qiji Huang made me feel unprecedented pressure. Pressure is the best sharpening. This best whetstone finally sharpened his strongest sword. Sudong looked at Qi Huang, who involuntarily retreated to the edge of the ring. A divine light like flames burst out in his eyes, and then he swung the long sword in his hand down fiercely. Boom boom boom. The galaxy shattered, and the stars fell like a sword slashing the sky. The sun and the moon exploded, and the starry sky shattered like a sword splitting the world. The black hole collapsed, and the power was as vast as the sword falling from the sun. The incomparable starry sky turned into an incomparable sword, and roared towards Qi Huang on the stage. Swordsman. At this moment, the gods and immortals in the entire spectator seats were shouting and cheering excitedly. Since the name of the swordsman spread throughout the void, the most eye-catching thing about him was his swordsmanship. The swordsman became famous because of his swordsmanship. The 12-layer outer heaven swordsmanship is famous in the void, and whenever it is born, it will be a world-shaking era. Therefore, many strong people come to watch it, many gods are fascinated and want to watch it, and countless goddesses and celestial beings look up to it. The outer heaven swordsmanship. It is known as the most terrifying and difficult swordsmanship in the void. It is a legend for gods to cultivate to the 3rd level, and it is like a final sound to fully master and exert its full power. At this moment, the swordsman turned the sword light into a world, and the world reflected the Huangquan arena and the entire void. This is already an era, the era of the swordsman. He can actually turn the sword light into a universe. The swordsman is so fierce. Countless gods and immortals praised him, and goddesses and immortals were fascinated. Break. Qi Huang roared, his long hair flying in the air. He held the magic sword in his hands tightly, and the sword formula was wrapped in a long rainbow. The sword was like a rainbow light that penetrated the galaxy and fell with a knife. The first knife. Break. Boom. Boom. Carrying vast power, 2 more terrifying knives that rolled up the airwaves followed one after another. Break it for me. Break it. Qi Huang stood on the ring. His face was ferocious, and the magic sword long rainbow turned into lightning, tearing the sky, tearing the ring, tearing the underworld, and hitting the sun and moon rotating knife light. Bang. At the moment of stabbing, the magic sword long rainbow gushed out, and a big sun seemed to emerge from the sea of clouds. The rainbow light covered the sun and the moon, and the big sun hit the knife light. Puff. Bright red blood spurted out of Qi Huang's mouth. His body trembled, and some of his scattered hair broke and flew in the air, and fell into the underworld. The ground of the ring where his feet stepped on cracked. Qi Huang's face turned pale, but the eyes, that always contained vigor and vitality, were burning with a strong fighting spirit, and the fighting spirit was boiling and surging. Boom. The 3rd knife came. It was as black as ink, and the knife light was like a demon. Like the knife of the god of death, it fell directly on Qi Huang's head. Before the knife light arrived, a terrible knife mark had already appeared on his forehead. The knife mark was spreading, and blood was spilling. Break, break, break. The fighting spirit in Qi Huang's eyes was burning, and the magic sword in his hand was collapsing. The sword light stirred time and space. The long rainbow penetrated the blackness. Boom. With a loud bang, the knife light was hit by the sword light, and the blackness was blocked by the long rainbow. Qi Huang's body was bombarded by the power, and the knife was blasted several feet away. The body fell, and stopped in the wind. Blood and water flowed from the tattered robe. The magic sword broke from the air, and the blade shot into the underworld. 1. Countless eyes were watching. The audience was in an uproar. As strong as Qi Huang was, he finally lost. Lost to the terrifying swordsmanship that shook the void? It was said to be the most terrifying swordsmanship in the void, and no one could really break it. Puff. Bright red blood flowed from Qi Huang's body, but his body was burning with a strong will to fight and swordsmanship. Swordsman, you are amazing, really amazing. It's a pity that you can't kill me. Qi Huang was transmitting his voice. If I can't kill you with one sword, then I'll do it again. Sudong, whose face was also pale, and whose divine power was almost exhausted, had his pupils shrink, but he was unwilling to be outdone and transmitted his voice in a low voice. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Qi Huang suddenly laughed, and his body was full of cracks, and blood flowed in the cracks, as the laughter sprayed. At the same time, he swung the broken sword in his hand violently. Whoosh. The broken sword turned into a rainbow light. The rainbow light shot straight at Sudong like lightning. Ding. Sudan waved his hand casually, and a blade flashed, easily knocking the broken sword away. The broken sword was knocked away, and fell under the floating yellow spring, disappearing in an instant. Haven't you lost yet? You're already injured like that. Can you still fight? You've already lost. This Qi Jiang. He's unwilling to give up. Some people in the spectator seats were talking in low voices, but most of them were silently paying attention to that figure. That was the peerless god Qi Jiang, who had never lost a single battle all the way, but just lost like this. Admittedly, his opponent's swordsman's strength was too terrifying, but if he just lost like this, it seemed a little hard to accept. Stand up. This book was recently updated in #at. Update. Sword God, stand up. Qi Jiang, I support you. Keep fighting. Countless goddesses and celestial maidens were quietly shouting, cheering for this peerless god, and some even shed tears for him. Sword God Qi Jiang, even if he loses, he must lose standing up. Swordsman. The sword god Qi Jiang standing on the stage still had blood on his lips, but his eyes were shining. Originally, I thought I could get through this yellow spring road with half of my strength. I didn't expect. Sudan was stunned. Everyone in the entire spectator booth who heard his words, from the divine emperor to the gods and immortals, all looked stunned. What did Qi Jiang say? Half of his strength to get through the yellow spring road. Up to now, he has only used half of his strength? Are you kidding? This is not how you brag. Sword God Qi Jiang, is he going to turn into a bragging god? On the stage, Sudan frowned. He was also a little stunned by what Qi Jiang said. Haha, you don't believe it, right? But swordsman, you are worthy of my full strength. Qi Jiang on the opposite side suddenly straightened his back, and his hand grasped the hilt of the magic sword on his back. Clang! The magic sword was unsheathed. It was a long sword that flashed with rainbow light. The sword itself seemed to be a ray of light, and when the long sword was unsheathed, it seemed as if a strong breath of life flowed on it. The divine sword was unsheathed. Qi Jiang's entire aura seemed to have changed in an instant. He seemed to no longer be a person, but at this moment he completely turned into a sword that soared into the sky. The sword light illuminated the sky. The sword light spanned the world. Swish! A sword light instantly penetrated the ring and appeared in front of Sudan in the blink of an eye. The speed was extremely terrifying, and the power was unparalleled. What? Sudan was shocked and swung the long sword in his hand instantly. At the critical moment, he barely blocked the sword, but the fierce power burst out from the tip of the sword. Puff! The power of the sword light penetrated Sudan's chest, and a mouthful of blood spit out from Sudan's mouth. Just the residual power of the sword light made him seriously injured and bleeding. Sudan was shocked. This sword, the power of this sword. Sudan roared in his heart and was shocked. He was shocked. This sword is an innate creature. His core data will roared. His 5-colored stone clone is an innate creature at the level of a world god, and his innate nature is a piece of 5-colored stone. Innate creatures have innate secrets. This sword has gone beyond the scope of swordsmanship. This sword is the power of innate secrets. This sword is an innate creature. At this moment, the entire void was shocked. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 405, Dragon Elephant Kun Divine Bell. The power of Qi Jiang's sword light that suddenly burst out was too terrifying. At the level of Sudan and Qi Jiang, the mysteries of the techniques can be said to have reached a certain limit. If you want to improve, you have to improve from the foundation. Sudan, who was standing with a knife, was bleeding from his chest. He was shocked by the power that Qi Jiang suddenly showed. The latter swordsmanship did not improve, but the power had a qualitative change. The innate power of innate creatures. There is only one possibility. Innate power is divided into 3 levels. The level of world gods and world immortals, the level of god kings and immortal kings, and the level of god emperors and immortal emperors. Innate power is innately given, and comes from bloodline. There is no need to practice. For example, Sudan's 5-colored stone clone has a world god level bloodline. The critical point of the power level of the innate secret method is the top of the world god. If it is an innate creature with the god king and immortal king bloodline, once the innate secret method is used, the innate power will be the power of the god king level. There is no need to practice and comprehend. The foundation is extremely high. The innate creatures of the divine emperor immortal emperor bloodline. When they reach this level, they are born extremely terrifying. The natural growth secret method is the divine emperor immortal emperor level power. With a little cultivation, they can even stimulate the power of the Holy Spirit void ancestor level by using the innate secret method after growing into the divine emperor immortal emperor. However, there are too few innate creatures at the divine emperor immortal emperor level. Even in the past eras, there are very few in the great world. Once they are born in the void, they will be recruited by major forces. The innate secret method of the innate creatures at the divine emperor immortal emperor level is actually the top secret method that the heaven and earth can bestow, similar to the ultimate of one of the 3000 heavenly ways. Just like some ordinary lives that comprehend the truth of the heavenly way, after comprehending one way, the power they show is not much different from the power of the innate secret method. One is mastered by innate, while the other requires continuous efforts, and only with extraordinary opportunities and talents can they have the opportunity to master it. And the power that is close to a branch of the avenue is naturally amazingly strong. In the Yellow Spring Road, in the towering and suspended sky giant city, on the 10 huge thrones, the powerful men who had been casual and calm before suddenly changed their expressions. A congenital creature at the level of the divine emperor. It is the power of the innate secret method. And it is a congenital creature of the divine sword. A divine sword born from heaven and earth contains the power of the sword's mysteries. With his swordsmanship attainments, he can stimulate power close to that of the divine emperor. A small god can stimulate power close to that of the divine emperor. How powerful. This Qi Jiuang. In our Middle Ages, such a congenital creature has not appeared for many years. He said that he only used half of his strength, and it seems to be true. He is arrogant, and has the qualifications to be arrogant. In fact, this kid can completely compete with the monsters in the mountain and sea realm era. Swordsmanship attainments are so high, and he is a congenital creature of the divine sword type divine emperor bloodline. How did such a genius come into being? Huangquan Daofu, which is in charge of destruction and birth, knows all the endless terrible secrets in the void, but at this moment they are shocked. Because at the level of a god, no matter how high the bloodline is, being able to stimulate the power of the god king level is already extraordinary, and is considered an amazing god in the entire void, but only belongs to the geniuses of the top powers in the world. For example, the Silver Knife God, the Marquis of Time, etc. And the female celestial being Zazu, who can stably burst out the power of the God King level, is a genius of the entire void level, and is rarely seen in tens of thousands of years. She is one of the countless geniuses in the void. As for Sudong and Qi Jiuang, especially Qi Jiuang, a congenital creature with a bloodline of the God Emperor level, coupled with an extremely terrifying swordsmanship attainment. Although the noble bloodline is bestowed with the power of the innate secret method by the heaven and earth, the innate secret method also needs to be developed and mastered. Just a god can burst out the power that is infinitely close to and almost equal to the level of the god emperor. It's two against the sky. Qi Jiuang, a genius of the entire void, an era level, and in many eras, he is close to the top. Innate creatures. Innate creatures need divine power to stimulate secret methods. You are still a god. I want to see how many swords you can swing. Sudong instantly understood the reason for the other party's sudden increase in strength. His face was cold. The fourth knife. Sudong stood on the stage, swinging his knife at Qi Jiuang from a distance. Boom. The starry sky and universe appeared. The sun, the moon, the stars, the black hole of the galaxy turned into a violent knife light and slashed at Qi Jiuang, who was also drawing the sword again. Qi Jiuang himself was a sword at this moment. It seemed that his body was seriously injured and damaged, but in fact his true life itself was the magic sword. It was precisely because he was the magic sword that the top magic weapons and artifacts were strictly prohibited from being brought into the Yellow Spring Road, and they were not eliminated. Because the magic sword was Qi Jiuang himself. Haha. Qi Jiuang's body was bleeding, but his eyes were shining. He laughed loudly and was not afraid of Sudong's knife light. Puff. The magic sword was swung, the starlight of the universe was torn and penetrated, and the knife light was shattered. The power spanned the entire stage. Puff. Sudong, who was swinging his knife in the distance, was unable to dodge, and was pierced through the right shoulder by a sword. His face turned pale and a mouthful of blood spurted out. In a head-on confrontation, who can be the opponent of Qi Jiuang? Sudong thought to himself. His eyes were still as deep as the sea, unfathomable. This Qi Jiuang is absolutely invincible. This is adversity, he thought to himself. Before the ranking battle started, Sudong thought that he would meet the most terrible opponent and face the most severe adversity. He knew very well that there were countless geniuses in the void, and there would always be stronger ones among the strong. Because he knew this, Sudong prepared a trump card early. Normal means of attack and power burst could no longer deal with Qi Jiuang. The only thing that could defeat Qi Jiuang at this time was the secret method of the soul. Die. An invisible soul shock wave instantly locked onto Qi Jiuang. The soul attack ignored the distance and instantly entered Qi Jiuang's soul sea. A huge and simple divine bell reflecting the golden dragon, the red giant elephant, and the black dark kun emerged, and the magnificent and melodious bell sounded. Ding, ding, ding. The bell sounded soul shaking. It immediately swung into Qi Jiuang's soul sea, and a layer of green light shield emerged from Qi Jiuang's soul sea. But then it was crushed and shattered by the melodious bell. Die. This book has been updated recently in @ Update. Sudong activated the first level of the Dragon Elephant Kun Divine Bell. He only knew that this soul secret method was a secret method at the level of the God King, and he had never tried the specific power. He was afraid that it would not be enough to defeat Qi Jiuang. He swung his sword and rushed over like lightning to finish off the sword. What? Qi Jiuang was sure of victory, and he exerted all his strength. He showed all his trump cards, and was about to show his power to defeat the swordsman, but then his soul was shaken. A large bell reflecting the long dragon, the giant elephant, and the dark kun suddenly floated in his soul. When the bell rang, he was struck by lightning. The soul sea shook. He was a congenital creature of the divine emperor bloodline, but his soul was only close to the top level of the world god. At this moment, in front of this divine king level divine soul secret technique, he was instantly stunned. Buzz. His ears were buzzing, and everything in front of him was pitch black. Hold on, hold on. Qi Jiuang felt death approaching, and his soul sea was shattering under the attack of this divine soul secret technique. He tried to hold on, but the bell rang 3 times, and this divine bell was like a death knell. It instantly destroyed Qi Jiuang's entire soul. Die. Sudong rushed over. Swish. The dark blade slashed at Qi Jiuang quickly, but Qi Jiuang stood there like a sculpture. Puff. The blade flashed like lightning, instantly slashing across Qi Jiuang's neck and the divine sword in his hand. The divine sword collapsed, and a head with long hair flying flew away, and divine blood gushed out. Swish. Sudong landed on the ground. His body paused, and there were 2 holes in his chest where divine blood flowed, and his eyes were still deep on his face. Wow. Qi Jiuang's body turned into yellow particles and dissipated, and the magic sword also disappeared. On the ring, which had shrunk to half its original size, only a figure remained. Countless gods in the empty viewing area were silent, looking at the figure on the ring. Standing with a sword in hand, he was unfathomable. That was the swordsman. End of this volume. Chapter 406. Guidance, the strongest in Huangquan. Sudong stood silently on the stage, with a golden light descending from his brow. Winning the victory will increase your rank by 1, and you will become a 9-crown king. You will receive special rewards. Swish. Sudong's figure disappeared from the stage. In the secondary king pavilion floating on the yellow spring road, the defeated peerless god Qi Jiuang sat cross-legged alone in the pavilion. He looked at the magic sword in his hand. Swordsman. Qi Jiuang's eyes were a little dazed. How did I lose? How could I lose? I should defeat you and become a 9-crown king. Who is he? Sword god Qi Jiuang, since his birth, has never lost a single battle. It is conceivable how much of a blow this battle has dealt to him. That swordsman is most famous for his swordsmanship, but I didn't expect that his even stronger skill is the secret method of his soul. His soul is also extremely powerful. Under that secret method of his soul, I couldn't hold on for a moment and was defeated. Qi Ji Huang recalled the previous battle, extremely shocked. There is no need to say much about the swordsman's swordsmanship. The 12-layered heavens are famous in the void. If it weren't for his innate bloodline of the Divine Emperor, he would have been defeated long ago. What shocked and frightened him was the last secret method of the soul that Su Dong showed. According to Qi Ji Huang's imagination, once he exerted all his strength and broke out his trump card, the power of his swordsmanship alone could crush Su Dong to death. What could Su Dong use to compete with him? Under normal circumstances, Su Dong really couldn't compete with him. Even the third level swordsmanship of the heavens was as fragile as paper in front of Qi Ji Huang. With just 3 swords, Qi Ji Huang could kill Su Dong. Everything was extremely easy. Qi Ji Huang, who had exploded with all his strength, had the confidence and strength to do so. But the fact was contrary to his wishes. At the moment, when he exploded with all his strength, Su Dong also broke out his last trump card. He sacrificed the secret method of the soul. The soul that was as powerful as the Divine King level activated the extremely brilliant secret method. It directly destroyed Qi Ji Huang's soul defense method. It was overwhelming and unstoppable. Too strong. The swordsman's soul secret method is too strong. It can kill me in an instant. Strong soul, strong secret method. Is this your real strength? Swordsman, I have never looked down on any genius. Void geniuses, in my eyes, are all chickens and pottery dogs. But you are different. You are stronger than me. In this battle, he lost to the swordsman, a peerless god who rose to fame with swordsmanship, but his soul was extremely strong. Yes, Su Dong's 2 strongest points are swordsmanship and soul. In terms of strength, Su Dong's soul secret method is now at the same level as his swordsmanship. Both are at the level of God King. It's just that compared to physical attack methods such as swordsmanship, the soul secret method is more difficult to defend and resist. Qi Ji Huang is good at swordsmanship, but not good at soul defense. If he is allowed to grow up for a few more years, the soul level will also be raised to the level of God King. Then even if Su Dong uses a soul secret method again, he will be affected, but he will not be crushed instantly. The gap is too big, and the power seems terrible. 9-crowned King Swordsman. The first king of Huanquan Road. Win. The swordsman wins. The core king will truly compete with the top kings of the void across the ages in the top showdown of the core kings of the 10 palaces Shura kings. Across the ages, the strongest in the void, the ultimate strongest geniuses will all be truly cultivated by Huanquan Daofu. Boom. Countless gods in the entire void viewing seat were discussing and cheering. But more of their strong men were still immersed in the previous battle. Originally, Qi Ji Huang suddenly burst out with such terrible strength, and the balance of victory instantly leaned towards him, but in the end it was the swordsman who inexplicably defeated Qi Ji Huang in an instant. To say it was inexplicable was for most of the weak gods and world gods, while the real strong ones were more shocked. In a towering temple in the great world of the Xiandi Shenzong in the endless void, King Xiangsu sat on the stone seat with a calm face, and in front of him were hundreds of his personal disciples. At this moment, there are hundreds of disciples. Some of them are innate creatures, some are monsters and ghosts, and some are enchanting and beautiful women. These disciples are trembling below, kneeling and not daring to breathe. Some of you have practiced for 1,000 years, and some have practiced for tens of thousands of years. In the past, everyone was arrogant and called a genius. Genius? Humph. From today on, I will give you 500 years. After 500 years, those who fail to become a divine emperor or fail to comprehend the power of the divine emperor will be wiped out. King Xiangsu's pale face was murderous, and the sound in his voice seemed to be a low roar. After speaking, King Xiangsu stood up and flew out of the hall. Some of the disciples in the hall looked desperate and terrified, while others were full of confusion. In short, everyone's expression changed drastically. Divine Emperor. Although they think they are geniuses, it is so difficult to become a divine emperor. Not to mention that there are only 500 years. King Xiangsu flew all the way to a cave in the world. This cave was very simple and out of place compared to the magnificent buildings around it. However, this cave was an important place that only King Xiangsu was qualified to enter. There was nothing extra in the cave, only a set of tables and chairs, a stone bed. King Xiangsu had a complicated and ugly expression and sat on the stone bed. That Sudong became the 9-crown king. Qi Huayang was defeated, not only became the 9-crown king, his swordsmanship, his soul secrets, are all very strong, but he is just a little god. When I was a god, I was far from him. King Xiangsu also grew up step by step from a weak person to the present, the leader of a void sect, supreme. Even if a long time has passed, he will never forget the hardships he experienced when he was weak. I went to accept a disciple, and my attitude offended the swordsman. Maybe he remembered it in his heart. There are many people in the void who will never let go of a grudge. King Xiangsu thought he was that kind of person. He judged others by himself, and he thought of others in this way. This book has been updated recently in #@. Update. Many geniuses died before they grew up. I hope this swordsman will die soon. In the cave, King Xiangsu's divine body lay on the stone bed, and there was silence. In the void, the geniuses who watched this battle were boiling. Qi Huayang is a monster, and this swordsman is even more of a monster among monsters. Guan Dainhao shook his head in the pavilion. The swordsman. I'm afraid he never took me seriously. The 7-sword god sighed. It was too much of a blow. The secret method of the soul. The swordsman is also good at the secret method of the soul. Zun's heart was also very uneasy. Qi Huayang, the swordsman. In a pavilion, Zhao Zu, who has a hot body, frowned slightly, turning around and entering the pavilion room. I know there is a gap between me and them, but the gap is too big. This battle has killed countless geniuses. It's like I don't bloom when all the flowers bloom, and when I bloom, all the flowers will die. Yellow Spring Road. 10 thrones in the Sky City. The huge and burly bull-headed giant, the sinister black god, and the horse-faced man with a sinister and bloody aura, and the elegant lord of the mansion, Jiang Pio wrapped in black rags. Many strong men gathered here. Let's decide. Who will take this swordsman? And Qi Huayang, he is also a good seedling, rare in 100,000 years. He is definitely the top genius of our medieval era. The opinions of several people are very consistent. Of course, I'm more optimistic about Qi Huayang. Qi Huayang is too talented. Sudong, on the other hand, is taking advantage of his strong soul. Qi Huayang is extraordinary. The swordsman is also very strong. After all, a winner is a winner. Since he wins, the special reward should fall on him. Yes, it's settled. The elegant looking Lord Fu stood up. Then I will take him to the Xiao Samsara cave to gain enlightenment. Okay, Lord Fu is suitable. Guess, everyone, whether this swordsman is gaining enlightenment about the way of life or the way of death. The old woman Jiang Pio wrapped in black cloth spoke. Chapter 407. Enlightenment in the Slanting Moon Reincarnation Cave. Whether it is the way of life or the way of death, it is extremely difficult. It is even more far away to understand the two ways of life and death, and achieve the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor. The Lord of the Mansion had an elegant smile on his face. The journey to achieve the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor is full of dangers, and countless geniuses have fallen. That is an ordinary genius. People like Sudong and Qi Huayang are not easy to fall. Yes, guiding them into the Tao is just the beginning. The necessary tempering is indispensable. Our Huangquandao mansion commands the entire void and runs through 3000 eras. There are too many top talents. Resources can be given, but competition is also required. Many have fallen in the process. No way. What we need is a truly peerless powerhouse. Ordinary lives, no matter how hard they are cultivated, are destined to not become top powerhouses. Only these truly peerless geniuses can have the possibility. Sudong didn't know what these powerful beings in the Huangquan Road said about his and Qi Huayang's performance. He was also recalling the previous battle in his mind. Foundation. Qi Huayang's innate life bloodline at the level of the Divine Emperor has a too strong foundation. Sudong sat in the pavilion and looked forward. My Tuosh body is also a Buddha level body. Logically speaking, a Buddha level body is also at the level of a Divine Emperor. But my Tuosh body has not awakened the innate secret method. Sudong frowned slightly. This time, I relied on the divine soul secret method to defeat Kijiuang. If I give him some time, whether he practices the divine soul defense secret method or becomes more powerful, he will be invincible. Although Sudong won this battle, he felt unprecedented pressure. My Buddha level body has great potential, but I haven't explored it well. I have always been focusing on swordsmanship. Sudong secretly said, but it is precisely because of the extremely terrifying innate comprehension of Tuoshi's body that I can quickly master the third level of my Shian Weishan sword method. Although mastering the third level is already a top talent among the countless gods in the void, it is still inferior to the top innate secret method of the Divine Emperor level. This island ranking battle made Sudong reflect on himself and discover his weaknesses in reflection, so that he can find his direction to move forward, check for omissions, and make up for them, and continue to become stronger. When Sudong was still immersed in reflection, outside the pavilion, Silver Blade God and Thunder Fire Immortal flew over together. Swordsman, I brought the fine wine from the ancient kingdom of divine fire. Can I come in and have a seat? I brought the holy fruit and spiritual meat from Jiuhua Mountain. The two were waiting at the door. Without Sudong's response, the two of them did not dare to go in. They kept waiting like this. Sudong stood up and flew out of the pavilion. Thunderfire Immortal couldn't help but step forward, his face full of excited and happy smiles. Swordsman, you won beautifully. Now the whole void is shaking. Countless gods and immortals are discussing that battle. Too powerful. Kijiuang is already strong and evil enough, but Swordsman, you are even stronger. Thunderfire Immortal said excitedly. Well, you are the strongest in Huanquan Road this time. Silver Knife God also smiled and said, Swordsman, you beat Kijiuang this time, and we have all become 9 crown kings. In the island ranking battle, Sudong finally defeated Kijiuang, and the three of them added 1 crown, and became 9 crown kings. Of course, only Sudong received a special reward. After all, although the Silver Knife gods are also 9 crown kings, their status is far inferior to Sudong. In the last battle, many people actually couldn't understand how Sudong suddenly turned defeat into victory and easily defeated Kijiuang, who was bursting out with all his strength at the last moment. The mystery of that battle was all in the soul secret method. Therefore, the swordsman Sudong completely shocked those world gods, god kings, god emperors and even some holy spirits. At the level of gods, he not only mastered the third level of the sword method of the sky, but also mastered the soul secret method that was estimated to be at the level of the god king. Suddenly, the swordsman Sudong was recognized as the first among the strongest people in Huanquan Road in the Void 100. The strongest in Huanquan. In this battle, Kijiuang's outburst has already shocked the void. Sudong's strength is even more shocking. This also makes Sudong more unfathomable and famous throughout the void. Kijiuang is very strong. Sudong only said this. Swordsman, you are even stronger. Come and taste the fine wine of our ancient country of Shenhuo. I have become the 9 crown king, and my status in the ancient country of Shenhuo can be greatly improved. I couldn't drink this fine wine in the past. Li Hoshiangson walked in with a smile, holding an exquisite wine pot in his hand. Yes, let's drink to celebrate first. Silver Knife Shianshan also said. There are many rumors in the outside world that they became the 9 crown king by holding Sudong's thigh. Yes, they did. Others want to hold it but can't. The island ranking battle finally ended, and the kings below the 9 crowns will receive different levels of cultivation from Huanquan Daofu. And the kings who are guided will have the opportunity to fight with the real peak powerhouses of each era in the void and compete for the few places for the core kings of the 10 palaces Shuriking. 9 realms Great World, Shianquan City. The Lord of 9 realms, Blood Lord, Stone Lord and others finally left. Sudong's 5-colored stone clone stood in a pavilion in Su Garden with a strange expression on his face. These high-level masters of the 9 realms are too enthusiastic. He sat in the pavilion, holding a cup of tea alone, recalling what the Lord of 9 realms and others had said before. Sudong, you are now the 9 crown king of Huanquan Daofu, and your status is no less than mine. This is what the Lord of 9 realms said. There is a small world called Shiansao in the ancient country of 9 realms, and from now on it will be your small world. This book was recently updated in #@@@@. Update. This is what the ancestor meant. The ancestor mentioned by the Lord of Nine Realms must be the immortal Nine Realms Void Ancestor. Being valued and favored by the Nine Realms Void Ancestor shows how great Sudong's influence is now. The Lord of Nine Realms and others left, and Sudong sat alone in the pavilion. His eyes gradually regained clarity. Although he seems to be qualified to be on par with the Lord of the Nine Realms at this moment. But that is because of his potential. Whether it is Huanquandeofu or the great forces of the void, they will pay attention to those geniuses with great potential, but this attention will change with time. On the road of a genius growing into a strong man, it is full of ups and downs and dangers. You may even fall down, if you are not careful. And if you are dazzled by the prosperity in front of you and slack off, you will eventually be forgotten by the void, and even fail to become a Holy Spirit ancestor, and will be erased in the years. Geniuses like Qi Huang are working hard, so I can't slack off. Sudong's eyes flashed with light. On the same day, Huangquan Road, in the pavilion, where Qi Huang was, a special guest was welcomed. He was a strong man dressed in a black robe, and even his skin was completely black. Opposite this strong man was Qi Huang. Have you figured it out? Black God looked at Qi Huang. When I found you in the ancient kingdom of Liuang, I gave you the king's order, and asked you to activate it directly. At that time, you also asked to participate in the Yellow Spring Road to hone your swordsmanship. In fact, with your innate bloodline level of the Divine Emperor, you don't need to participate in the Yellow Spring Road at all. Yeah. Qi Huang nodded slightly. His eyes were still shining, but his face was less sharp than before, and more restrained. It seems that the battle with the swordsman has made you grow a lot. The swordsman will be led by the Taoist mansion to the Oblique Moon Reincarnation Cave. To comprehend the Tao today, you should understand that with his comprehension, whether he can comprehend the Tao or not, he will become stronger after coming out of there. Black God looked at Qi Huang with interest. Originally, Qi Huang came here for the special reward of the Nine Crown King, the Oblique Moon Reincarnation Cave, to comprehend the Tao. I know. Qi Huang nodded with a grim face, but did not feel sorry. This battle made him completely sober. There is always someone stronger among the strong. The strength of the swordsman made him more clearly aware of his own shortcomings. Thanks to Wu Yamin for the reward. Chapter 408, The Void Separated by Time. I know that swordsmen are strong, but the strength of swordsman is half of his swordsmanship and half of his soul secrets. Although his attainments in the heavenly swordsmanship are strong, but he is not at the 5th level, and cannot touch the origin of the way of death. Qi Huang is a peerless god of the ancient country of Liuang. In order to let him hone his swordsmanship, the ancient country of Liuang also read many methods, among which the heavenly swordsmanship was also borrowed. The truly famous techniques in the void, even the cultivation of gods and immortals, are all for peeping into the essence of life and death. Practicing for longevity. Constantly sharpening oneself for immortality. There are thousands of ways of heaven, all of which include the interpretation of life and death. Some strong people use wind and fire to enter the way to peeping into the way of life, and some immortals use thunder and lightning to enter the way to peeping into the way of death. But the way of life and death is not constant. Just like why Qi Huang's swordsmanship attainments are so terrible, why his innate power is so strong, it is because he has touched a little bit of the way of life and death. That is the great Dao. This is also why many strong people in Huanquandeofu attach great importance to him. The swordsman's strength made Qi Huang realize his own shortcomings, but it did not put pressure on him. As long as my soul is a little stronger, or I'll learn a stronger soul defense method, I can easily defeat that swordsman. This battle made Qi Huang realize his own shortcomings. Yeah. Hishin smiled and nodded. He also thought so. The swordsman was strong just to restrain Qi Huang. In terms of real potential, Sudong was far behind Qi Huang. And he could make Qi Huang understand his own shortcomings. With the training of Huanquandeofu, Qi Huang could naturally make up for his shortcomings quickly, become a real strong man. This time it was just a small fall. You can afford it. Now you can realize your own shortcomings, and make up for them quickly, which is even better. Hishin smiled. By the way, which Shuriken took the swordsman? Qi Huang asked. It was the lord of the mansion. The pavilion where Sudong was. Sudong's Tuosh body stood respectfully in a black robe. Opposite him was a middle-aged man in white clothes with a refined face and a refined temperament. Sudong secretly looked at the middle-aged man. He is the lord of the mansion, a powerful Azura king under the command of the great Azura king of Bianji. The lord of the mansion also looked at Sudong. Swordsman, to be honest, when you guys entered the Yellow Spring Road, our attention was focused on Kijiwang, and we didn't notice you. It was really beyond our expectation that you could defeat Kijiwang. The lord of the mansion smiled. Kijiwang is indeed very strong. Sudong's face was serious. Yes, he has the qualifications to trigger the king's order, but he chose to break into the Yellow Spring Road. To be honest, the 9-crowned king of the Yellow Spring Road only has the qualifications to enter the 10 palaces Azura King Corking battle, and there is no special reward. This special reward is also added for Kijiwang. Haha, it's a pity that I didn't expect that you got the advantage in the end. The lord of the mansion laughed. Sudong was stunned. The special reward is specially prepared for Kijiwang? Don't mind it. Kijiwang is very special. I believe you can feel it. But your performance is outstanding, so I'm very optimistic about you. Let's go. Follow me to the Samzura cave. How much you can gain depends on yourself. The lord of the mansion smiled and waved his hand. Suddenly, Sudong felt that the scene in front of him changed suddenly. The pavilions he was in before disappeared. In the endless yellow spring, thousands of feet high in the sky, yellow clouds and strong winds were floating together. The lord of the mansion, who was thousands of feet tall, was standing in the yellow clouds and strong winds. His palms were emitting a bright golden light, and his palms were stretched out. In the center was standing a small figure. It was Sudong. Sudong was completely stunned. The ordinary lord of the mansion, who was the same size as him just now, became thousands of feet tall in the blink of an eye, and he was standing in his palm. Is this the power of the Holy Spirit Zuzu? Sudong. The lord of the mansion looked down at the young man in his palm. The Oblique Moon Reincarnation Cave records the mysterious power of gods and ghosts in 3,000 great eras and billions of small eras. There are great secrets in it. Only those who have made great contributions to the Yellow Spring Deo Palace can enter. You must not tell others about your entry, and you don't need to talk about what you have gained. The Holy Spirit of the Lord of the Palace said to Sudong in the palm of his hand. Then he waved his hand. Sudong felt that the space, time, and latitude of the world in front of him changed instantly. The lord of the palace, who was 10,000 feet tall, disappeared in this space. He appeared, showing a 10,000-foot body, but the many secondary kings of the surrounding pavilions did not notice it at all. Even the neighboring Silver Knife God and Thunderfire Celestial Immortal did not notice it. Time and space rotated, and Sudong seemed to be in the clouds. He followed the lord of the palace, who was 10,000 feet tall, and moved at a high speed. This speed was too fast. Sudong even felt that the word speed could no longer be used to describe it. Because Sudong felt that the lord of the palace's movement seemed to shuttle through time and space and cross the era. In a blink of an eye, a green mountain appeared in front of him. It is unknown when and where the green mountain stood, and it will never be destroyed in the era. The green mountain stretches for no more than 100 miles, with undulating peaks. The highest peak has 3 peaks, towering into the clouds. Even in the palm of the 10,000-foot high lord of the mansion, Sudong can only see the white clouds surrounding the mountainside, but cannot see the true appearance of the mountaintop. The green mountain is covered with dense forests, waterfalls are floating, clouds are turning rapidly, rocks are rugged, rare birds are flying, and strange beasts are crawling. The visible Deo runes are rising and reflecting above the peaks. This is a famous mountain in the era. But what is more famous than this kind of mountain is a secret cave located in the mountain. Swish. The 10,000-foot high lord of the mansion waved his hand and threw Sudong directly to the secret cave in the Green Mountain. This Samzura cave is a major place in Huangquan Mansion. It is a great opportunity for you to enter it when you are a god. I envy you, so you must cherish it. The lord of the mansion's voice resounded in Sudong's ears. Remember, you only have 1 year. This book was recently updated in #@. Update. 1 year? Sudong was surprised, and then he realized that this time and space were different from the time and space of Huangquan Road. Perhaps 1 year passed here, But only a few days passed in Huangquan Road. Junior must cherish it, Sudong said. Swish. Sudong landed in the Green Mountains, in front of a strange rock road, and looked at the cave in front of him. The 5 words Slanting Moon Reincarnation Cave were written on the cave entrance. Sudong walked into the cave entrance. Then he saw an extremely huge and strange cave, which reflected 3,000 great eras. There were immortals and demons dancing, gods and Buddhas flying in the sky, dragons roaring, and evil spirits ferocious. 3,000 great eras, each era separated the void. The void is space. The era is the past and present. From ancient times to the present, one void after another has been separated. What remains unchanged is the void, and what changes is the era. Sudong was completely shocked. To understand the great way of life and death, to achieve the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor, then to achieve eternity. This eternity, it means to customize the time and space by oneself, and the time and space customized by oneself will never be disturbed by the time of the universe. To be able to transcend life and death, is this to open up a small era that belongs to oneself? To open up an era by oneself and achieve immortality. That great era, what kind of era of the strong? Sudong felt that his worldview was completely overturned. He walked into the cave. In the 3,000 eras of the cave, there were various methods and magic arts appearing. Methods are to cultivate longevity, magic arts are to cover the coffin of death. These methods and magic arts are difficult and dry, but each of them has infinite magical uses and great power. Chance, this is my great opportunity to peek into the great way of life and death. Sudong was immersed in the cave, and he observed many methods and magic arts all day long. Every time he felt more, he entered the eternal time and space, and slowed down the time 100 times to experience. Yes, 100 times. This Slanting Moon Reincarnation Cave is my great opportunity. I have no shortage of heaven and earth essences. Even if it costs a lot, I will make the most of this opportunity. Sudong was extremely serious. As long as I understand a little bit of the origin of life and death, my strength will be taken to a high level. Sudong did not dare to slack off. From this day on, for a period of 1 year, Sudong's enlightenment in the Slanting Moon Reincarnation Cave began, and in the Yellow Spring Road, Qi Jiuyang also began to practice the secret method of the soul. He wanted to make up for his shortcomings before the King's War came. Time was passing quickly. Xiangquan City Sudong's 5-colored stone clone invested a lot of heaven and earth treasures in breaking through the limit of blood. Once he broke through the blood of the God King level, coupled with the eternal time and space, to reduce the speed of time, his 5-colored stone clone would break through to become a God King Immortal King. Tuoshi's physical body will also bring about a transformation. At this moment, he has already passed the Yellow Spring Road, and he does not have to stay at the level of the god. Once you enter the Yellow Spring Deo Mansion, it is not about realm. It's about the rank. Some god emperors are kings until their death, but some god kings are sure kings. Strength determines everything. Chapter 409, Strength is Rising. Time passed, and time blurred in the Yellow Spring Road. 1 month had passed in the 9 realms. In the core area of the 9 realms, the 9 realms Void Ancestor, wearing a loose robe, was smiling at the figure next to him. Black King. Next to the 9 realms Void Ancestor was a slightly sturdy short Taoist priest, who was wearing a black robe and a black crown. A layer of black nebula-like material was shrouded around him. He was like a shotgun piercing the sky in the void, standing tall. Even the occasional divine power from his brows could easily crush the body of the divine emperor Immortal Emperor. He was another Holy Spirit Void Ancestor of the 9 realms ancient country, the Black King Void Ancestor. Is this the little guy who was famous in the void? The Black King Void Ancestor looked at the misty screen in front of him. In the screen, it was the last battle between Sudong and Qi Jiuyang. Yes, the strongest man in the Yellow Springs, who came out of our 9 realms, the 9-crowned king, and a little guy named Zun, but Zun is far inferior to Sudong. The 9 realms Void Ancestor nodded. He's quite powerful. His final soul burst was very strong. He should be better than the God King this time. His swordsmanship is also very strong. At the level of a god, he can fully master the 3rd level of the Xian Wei Xian swordsmanship, and perfectly exert the power of the swordsmanship, which is very good. Only from the 5th level of the Xian Wei Xian swordsmanship can one glimpse the origin of death. Generally, geniuses can cultivate to the 5th level, but he, a god, has perfectly mastered the 3rd level. It is obvious that he has already achieved great comprehension of this swordsmanship. He might be able to comprehend the 5th level of the swordsmanship in a very short time. But comprehending the 3rd level is the limit for a god to break through, unless he breaks through, to become a world god in a short period of time. Black King Zuzu nodded, then frowned. As far as I know, those who can activate the King's Order in the King's War are all truly terrifying geniuses that have emerged in various eras, and the realm limit of the King's Order is very high, and all world gods are qualified to activate the King's Order. Although in the Yellow Spring Road, they can burst out the might of the God King level, but in the King's War, this strength is not enough. I guess, it can only be a bottom line. Those who can activate the King's Order are all top geniuses who have bloomed endless light in various eras of the void, plus a slightly higher realm. Although there is not much difference between world gods and heavenly gods, this slight realm is enough to stop a large number of strong people. Then Qiji Huayang has the Six Suns ancient country as a backing, and it is estimated that Qiji Huayang's realm will be pushed to the realm god level in a short time. I think we should also send some heaven and earth treasures to Sudan. As the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor, it is easy to help a little fellow of the heavenly god break through to the realm god in a short time. Haha, take another look at this. 9 realms Void Ancestor pointed to the void, and the picture in the void suddenly turned, and a vast land appeared in the picture, and a white-robed figure was suspended above the land. Innate creature clone. Black King Void Ancestor's eyes lit up when he saw it. I also heard that Sudang has another clone. It's a 5-colored stone innate creature. That realm. In the picture, Sudang's 5-colored stone clone stimulated the power of the earth, and suddenly the whole earth was shrouded in a colorful light. On the earth, a demon king at the level of God King was crawling. The demon king had a hideous head and horns, and blood-colored runes were wrapped around his body. However, under Sudang's earth domain, the demon body was directly crushed. This is a little demon king who has harmed the territory of my 9 realms ancient country. Sudang found out and personally took action to eliminate the demon. When he took action, I found that he had broken through the level of God King. Innate creature of the world god level. Bloodline breaks through the level of God King. Once the clone breaks through, then the water will rise, and the boat will rise. His clone in Huanquan should also be able to reach the realm level in a short time, enough to meet the threshold of the king battle. Joji Zuzu smiled. 2 clones. This Sudang has a promising future. Even if he can't compare to Qiji Huayang, he is still extraordinary. Black King nodded in appreciation, especially when he saw Sudang taking action to eliminate the monster. He was even more satisfied. Qiji Huayang is the seed of Huanquan Daofu. As long as he overcomes the shortcomings in the soul, who can be his opponent? Joji Zuzu also nodded. Even if it is Qiji Huayang, it's good to be ranked in the top 10 in this king battle. Black King looked at Sudang in the picture and whispered. Huh. Joji Zuzu was shocked. According to the information sent by those old guys in the mountain and sea realm, among the many geniuses who activated the king order this time, there is one who has comprehended the outline of the origin of death. Although he is just a realm god, his power has almost reached the top level of the god emperor. Going one step further, TSK, I dare not imagine it. Comprehended the outline of the origin of death. Joji Zuzu was surprised. The 2 origins of life and death. The way of life is to realize longevity, while the way of death is more about killing. No matter which one you realize, you can become immortal, and become the Holy Spirit. That is the real Vildoa. Compared with Qiji Huayang, he is a little worse. As for Sudang, he is still very young. He is so young. He has such strength. He has entered the Huanquan Dao mansion, and become the 9 crown king. He will also receive the focus of training from the Huanquan Dao mansion, and his strength will also have a rapid growth period. Not bad. Both of them nodded. In their opinion, Sudang has performed very well. Especially the understanding of the swordsmanship, which is destined to make him go very far on the road of Xian Weishan swordsmanship. It should be half a year before the king's battle. In this half year, Sudang's clone realm will break through, and perhaps his swordsmanship will become stronger. This Sudang has a very high talent in swordsmanship. Even I dare not say that I can master the heavenly swordsmanship so terrifyingly when I was a god. Did you order someone to send him the 5th level of the heavenly swordsmanship? This book was recently updated in #at. Update. Yes. 9 realms. Zuzu smiled. It has been sent a long time ago. If Sudan can master the 5th level of the heavenly swordsmanship, then in the king's battle, maybe he will have a chance to break into the top 10. Black King Zuzu nodded slightly. The top 10, that is a gathering of talented strongmen who have amazed the times. How difficult it is to rank in the top 10. Of course, it is equally difficult to practice the 5th level of the heavenly swordsmanship. When the 2 holy spirit Zuzas of the 9 realms ancient country were paying attention to Sudan, Sudan's tush body was in the Ziya Samzara cave, slowing down the time by 100 times to realize the truth. While comprehending the avenue of life and death in the Ziya reincarnation cave, he practiced swordsmanship at the same time. My realm has broken through to the level of God King, and my soul strength has skyrocketed again. Even if it is not as good as the God Emperor, it is also the top level of God King. It is very difficult to improve the soul. He previously used the treasures of heaven and earth to stack the soul level to the level of God King, but the realm has broken through. The soul has skyrocketed, and the original increase is not enough to stack it to the level of God Emperor. After all, it is a qualitative change. It can be said that the improvement is not great. The difficulty of improving the soul is destined to make my soul secret method unable to make great progress, but the swordsmanship can be improved. The 100-fold time deceleration consumes a huge cost. I must make good use of this time to make my strength stronger. Sudan was completely immersed in the swordsmanship and enlightenment. In this state, his strength is also improving at an astonishing speed. My realm is higher, my divine power is stronger, my core data, will and consciousness are more powerful, and my swordsmanship is much stronger. I used to think that the 4th level of Xian Wei Xian, the void sword, was very difficult, but now I can do it easily. In the past, his realm was not high enough, and he thought that the 4th level was a heavenly book, and he could not touch it at all. But now, everything is in place. It has become easy to practice the 4th level of Xian Wei Xian. Half of the time is spent practicing swordsmanship and the other half is spent on enlightenment. This year was slowed down to 100 years by him. But the improvement in strength made him feel not boring at all. And this improvement, when he shows it, is bound to surprise everyone. In this kind of practice, since my tush body broke through to become a world god, a little particle of light has automatically condensed at the center of my eyebrows. This is the first time that his Buddha level body has shown its extraordinariness. Sudan is also looking forward to it. Chapter 410 Great Light God Killing. When many gods in the entire void were silently waiting for the start of the King War, in another void that spanned the ages. This was a completely different void, but it also had 3 top forces. Huangquan Deofu, the Eternal Buddha Realm, and the Void God Court. They existed eternally throughout all ages. This void era was called the Great Light Era. The Great Light Era was named so because the real ruler of this era was a race that was extremely terrifying in many eras, the Light God Kirin clan. Light God Kirin, one of the most beloved lives of the heavenly Dao. In each era of the void, whenever it appeared, it could dazzle an era, and in the era, it was the top of the pyramid of life that dominated the king. Light God Kirin. Born as a god, even if you don't practice, you can become a god king and immortal king by growing up naturally, and those with outstanding bloodlines can easily grow into god emperors and immortal emperors. The strength of bloodline allowed the Light God Kirin clan to give birth to countless Holy Spirit void ancestors. Of course, the heavenly Dao gave them powerful bloodlines, but also limited their number. There are very few pure bloodlines of the Light God Kirin. Although this void era is named after the Great Light, most of the life is still ordinary life. The Light God Kirin only occupies the highest level of the void, and is the real overlord of the era. Moreover, in order to expand their strength, as long as the bloodline of the God Kirin appears in each era, they will be taken back to this era. The bloodline of the God Kirin is extremely noble, and of course it has become a rare treasure in the void space. Legend has it that the bloodline gene of the God Kirin contains the endless way of life. If you understand the way of life, you can become the immortal Holy Spirit void ancestor. Therefore, many god emperors who are trapped in the last step in the void will have the idea of this bloodline. There are even powerful masters of the void era in secret. Send a powerful Holy Spirit void ancestor to do this business. This is the case in the void. As long as you have a demand, there will be a trade, and then there will be killing, assassination, plunder, and everything else. There was once a Holy Spirit void ancestor who traveled through many eras and came to the void of the Great Light era to plunder a god killing and then sold it in the void of each era. This incident shocked the entire Great Light era. The top warriors of the Divine Kirin clan came out. They were a group of Holy Spirit void ancestors, and even a suspected master level existence took action, directly crossing many void eras, capturing the Holy Spirit void ancestor and killing him. It even almost overturned the entire void of an era. The entire void era was almost wiped out. That battle shook the eternal void. If you dare to attack our Divine Kirin clan, you must be prepared to pay the price. We are not afraid of provocation, and the provocateurs will be killed. Kill, kill, kill. Any dominant clan in the void era was not praised, but killed all the way. The Great Light Divine Kirin clan, the reputation shines in the void of many eras. No one dares to provoke them. However, there are still many of their bloodlines that are scattered outside. After all, there are those who are not afraid of death. In order to protect their bloodline, the descendants of the Divine Kirin clan are all protected in a Kirin world. This world has been transformed into an entire palace. In the vast palace, a handsome young man with two horns on his head was carefully studying the files in his hands. The files were not written in words, but were scenes of scenes being performed. Battle scenes kept appearing one after another. Your Highness, let's have a meal. A beautiful maid came in with delicious meat and wine. Seeing the handsome young man flipping through the files, she couldn't help but smile sweetly. Those geniuses dare to call themselves geniuses. Who of them can be your opponent? The beautiful maid looked at the young man opposite with reverence. This was their supreme master, and also a pure-blooded bright divine unicorn, Big Yellow Dog. After the divine unicorn bloodline was transformed into a human form, it had incomparable handsomeness. The horns on its head symbolized their noble bloodline. Each of the princes had a special personality, and everyone respected their personalities. Some were lazy, some were warlike, some were erudite. And the prince in front of him was the divine unicorn prince who triggered the king's order this time. No, it's different. Those who can enter the king's battle are all top geniuses of each era. Not only are they extraordinary in inspiring the king's order, but also the geniuses who have passed the Yellow Spring Road and become the strongest in the Yellow Spring are extraordinary. The handsome young man looked serious. The importance he attached to his opponent was also an importance he attached to himself. The beautiful maids smiled at each other. Your Highness, you have a noble bloodline. Those ordinary geniuses are like ants in front of you. One of the maids with a graceful figure and very little clothing said. Nonsense. The handsome young man raised his head and frowned slightly. No matter how high my bloodline is, it's just a high starting point. Look at the strong people who emerged in each era. How many of them have really extremely high bloodlines? Most of them are those who rose from humble beginnings and grew up step by step. The handsome young man shook his head. I heard from my father that the ruler of the Middle Ages grew up step by step from weakness. His strength was extremely terrifying. Even my father was far from his opponent. He liked to listen to the legendary stories of these strong people since he was a child. Rising from humble beginnings made him, who had been high and mighty since he was a child, feel excited. That is a great existence. How can these geniuses compare with that existence? The maid pursed her lips and muttered. Yes, there was one in the void in the Middle Ages, a man named Qi Jiang, with the body of an innate divine sword. The gods can stimulate the ultimate power of the God King. Now that he has broken through the realm of God, he must have the power of the God Emperor. The innate creatures at the level of the God Emperor are not inferior to the bloodline of the top geniuses of his Divine Kirin clan, and he is also a divine sword body. The innate body of the divine sword, combined with the attainments of swordsmanship, has touched a little bit of the origin of death. Combined with the two, the power of his swordsmanship is too terrible and cannot be resisted at all. The handsome young man's eyes were extremely solemn. Those beautiful maids widened their eyes. They were also celestial fairies and goddesses, and understood how powerful he was. In the past, in their eyes, their highness was the strongest and the most heaven-defying genius. The rest were not worth their attention. They were a little surprised when they heard it at first. Your highness, don't worry. You have also broken through to the realm god, and you will definitely be able to easily crush Qi. The beautiful maid flattered and comforted. The handsome young man glanced at the maid. This time in the Middle Ages, there was an explosion of geniuses in the void. In addition to Qi, there is also a man nicknamed the Swordsman. This swordsman uses the same Xianweishan swordsmanship as the sixth brother. The handsome young man said solemnly. This book has been updated recently in .. Update. Sixth Prince? Heaven. When they heard the name of the sixth prince, many maids were shocked. That is an absolute monster and a strong man. In the era of the divine Kirin, the void was a legend. Of course, this swordsman's swordsmanship is far from that of the sixth brother. The handsome young man shook his head, but he has a high talent for swordsmanship. His spirit is also very strong. One is not a big deal, but both are strong. This shows that this swordsman has great potential. It feels to me that this swordsman is more terrifying than Qi. Qi puts pressure on him. The swordsman makes him feel uncertain and unfathomable. The maids looked at each other and dared not speak. They could not casually comment on the many geniuses of the void era. The top masters of each era of the endless void were all preparing. Qi was working hard to improve his weaknesses in the soul. Sudong was also working hard to comprehend and practice. Seize every minute and every second. The special reward from Huang Quandaofu was his chance, and he had to seize it. On this day, Sudong sat cross-legged in the cave of the Slanting Moon Reincarnation Cave. This little particle has changed. Sudong suddenly showed a hint of surprise on his face. The little particle of light at the center of Tuoshi's body suddenly changed a little. Tuoshi's body is a Buddha-level body, which is comparable to the innate creatures at the level of the Divine Emperor. It has always been ordinary. This first change, Sudong is looking forward to it. Chapter 411, a page of Buddhist scripture spans the ages. Sudong's Buddha-level flesh and blood body was finally nurtured after consuming many treasures from heaven and earth. It is conceivable how precious and powerful it is. In an unknown era, in the Xiaohu Reincarnation Cave, the world in the cave records all kinds of Taoist magics from 3000 eras, reflecting the most powerful methods from ancient times to the present. In the cave, Sudong looked inward, and a layer of golden light lingered all over his body. Then he disappeared in the cave in an instant. In the vast white world of eternal time, Sudong stood in this world, holding a knife in his hand, performing knife skills, and swinging the knife. A dark arc emerged from the white world, slowly cut across, and turned into a dark sun that rose, and fell and finally disappeared between heaven and earth. The fourth level of the heavenly sword technique is indeed much stronger than the third level. I feel different when I perform this sword technique at the level of a realm god than at the level of a heavenly god. Sudong looked down at his palm, and the powerful power of the realm god level was contained in his palm. Once the realm is reached, my Tush body will naturally rise and break through the realm god level. But in order to strengthen the realm power, I also took a large number of heaven and earth treasures. Breaking through is one thing, but to stabilize the realm and tap into one's own potential, a large number of treasures are needed. So far, all the treasures in the temple relics have been almost completely used up by Sudong, plus the maintenance of the eternal time and space with 100 times time deceleration. Hundreds of heaven and earth crystals are used every minute. 30,000 are needed a day. In a year, the eternal time and space alone consumes 10.95 million heaven and earth crystals. The price is so high that it can be said that all the wealth accumulated by Sudong over the years has been squandered. Luckily I got the temple treasures, otherwise the money from selling the treasures of heaven and earth alone would not be enough to cover the expenses of eternal space-time. Sudong sighed. The temple treasures were treasures that could make the powerful people at the level of God Emperor and Immortal Emperor excited, and Sudong's investment in cultivating himself was not inferior to the expenditure of ordinary God Emperor and Immortal Emperor. It's still not enough. But recently, the 5-color stone clone has another income. The Xian's How Small world is completely controlled by dozens of void gods and heavenly immortals. The small world is larger than the small world of the Jin Dynasty. There are many lives in the world that create wealth for me. Even if I don't do the business of selling the creatures in the world, I can still get about 30,000 world crystals every month. In the void, the strong control many small worlds, and almost every strong has many small worlds under his name. Of course, the channels of the small world must be backed by a big background and a big force, otherwise it is a headache to just protect this small world. For someone like Sudang, he has the 9 realms ancient country as his backstage. The world managed by the 9 realms ancient country is given to him, and there are professional gods and immortals in the world to take care of it. In a month, he can get 30,000 world crystals. It's already good. After all, a part of it has to be shared with the 9 realms ancient country. The wealth income of the entire Xiangquan city in a month is only calculated in terms of world crystals. Although he has income, Sudang's expenses are still far from his income. His clone of the innate creature of 5-colored stone has broken through the level of God King. After breaking through the level of God King, he needs to devour more kinds of gemstones of heaven and earth. The value is also higher. It is a complete money spending cave. After all, the clone of the innate creature is more difficult and more expensive as it is promoted. The wealth required to break through the limit of the realm level bloodline is even more difficult for a strong man like Zuzan to piece together. And as the bloodline reaches a level of God King, the bloodline becomes stronger and stronger, and the gemstones of heaven and earth required are getting higher and higher. In history, any force that dares to vigorously cultivate a weak innate creature to grow all the way, the cost is extremely terrible. Therefore, no sect or country dares to do this, unless the innate creature really shows the talent of a demon. And Sudang, because the void reincarnates into a 5-colored stone innate creature, this is his main clone. The stronger the clone is, the better. Even if it costs a lot, it has to be spent. This is the foundation of his strength. Like Qi Wang, who is a divine emperor level innate creature, and a divine sword creature, the starting point is much higher than his own 5-colored stone clone. You can't compare them. If you compare yourself with others, you will die. Therefore, Sudang's current cultivation is tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of heaven and earth crystals every minute, and huge wealth is spent like water. This is only the level of the God King. His Tuosh body is just a world god. As his realm gets higher and higher, the level gets higher and higher. The cost will be even more amazing. Of course, with a huge investment, the gains that come with it are also huge. The first major improvement is the swordsmanship. The eternal time and space are slowed down by 100 times, and the swallowing of the yellow spring deo fruit assists in cultivation, which makes Sudang's swordsmanship realm soar day by day. Now he has mastered the 4th level of the Xianwaishan swordsmanship, the void sword. Now, the power of his single round swordsmanship is comparable to the power of Qi Jiuyang's swordsmanship when he bursts out with all his strength. The second major improvement is the magic of Taoism. Entering the Xiaoyu Samsara cave, Sudang comprehended the various magic of Taoism in the 3000 eras. Naturally, there will be gains. These Taoist magic arts are accumulated in his soul, bones, and flesh. Once they burst out, he will eventually master a magic method that can peek into the way of life and death. At that time, he will shine in the void of the era. Strength is soaring rapidly. No matter how much it costs, Sudang will accept it. This tiny bit of light has finally transformed. Sudang's eyes suddenly lit up. In the white world, the tiny bit of light at the center of Sudang's eyebrows suddenly shone brightly. The slanting moon Samsara cave is a treasure land that reflects the Taoist magic arts of 3000 eras. The abundant spiritual energy is much stronger than the eternal time and space. Let's go outside. Sudang's heart moved. Swish. His figure appeared in the slanting moon Samsara cave. The time of the eternal time and space is slowed down 100 times. He is in the eternal space for an hour, while the outside world is just a blink of an eye. This book has been updated recently in Update. In the cave of the slanting moon Samsara cave, Sudang sat cross-legged. The core data will consciousness completely entered the spot of microscopic light between the eyebrows. In the space between the eyebrows of Tush's body, the microscopic light that radiated star-like brilliance was surrounded by light golden mist. Sudong's huge core data will consciousness, which had broken through the level of God King, was like a giant, crawling in front of this microscopic light, staring at it. Is this the breath of the origin? Sudong's core data will consciousness felt the breath of the origin like an innate creature on the microscopic light. His core data will consciousness was full of expectations. But, the already extremely bright microscopic light suddenly began to shine brightly, and the light shone out, revealing a strange rune, similar to the Zen language of some scriptures, which was extremely strange. This rune shone brightly, and the light penetrated Sudong's body and burst into the entire Samsara cave. At the same time, the rune changed, and turned into a tiny macro carving like an exquisite Buddhist kingdom located in the space between Sudong's eyebrows. Each side of this macro-carving Buddhist kingdom has extremely complex Zen Buddhist scriptures, and the Zen scriptures are completely integrated into the entire Buddhist kingdom. This is the true core of Sudong's Tuosh body, the inner Buddhist kingdom. I'm free from the Buddha. A faint low voice came out of thin air, and penetrated the endless eras, echoing in the cave sky of the slanting moon reincarnation. Hu 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 hu. A page of Buddhist scriptures penetrated the void of many eras from the reflection of the 3000 eras, passed through the reflection of the cave sky, and then quickly sank into Sudong's inner Buddhist kingdom. A page of Buddhist scriptures suddenly suppressed above Sudong's Buddhist kingdom. Thanks to Zioyo Langsu and Kang Bei Wang for the reward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 412, Evolving Your Future Self. A page of Buddhist scriptures was hovering over the inner Buddha kingdom. The core data will consciousness of the Sudong God King was still crawling in front of this inner Buddha kingdom, looking at the strange tadpole script Buddhist scriptures on the page of Buddhist scriptures that were like blood vessels and twisted and entangled like mountain ravines. Interesting. Sudong's core data will consciousness was amazed. He himself had been comprehending the magic of Taoism here for so long without any movement. Now that Tuoshi's physical body has transformed, it has caused such a strange phenomenon. It is indeed a bit incredible. He was surprised by the strange mystery of the Samsara cave and the changes in Tuoshi's physical body. This page of Buddhist scriptures, my core data will consciousness cannot interpret, but Tuoshi's physical body has some understanding. Sudong's core data will consciousness retreated. This inner Buddha kingdom and a page of Buddhist scriptures are similar to some kind of Buddhist unity, approaching innate secrets. But unlike the innate secrets, this inner Buddha kingdom and a page of Buddhist scriptures are acquired. However, this kind of good fortune still has a way of surpassing the work of nature. His core data, will and consciousness faded away, leaving only the macro carving of the Buddha kingdom in his heart. The Buddha kingdom has extremely complex and strange scriptures on all four sides, and each scripture emits a faint golden light. Wow. Sudong's Tuosh cloned soul condensed into a white robe phantom, and appeared in the Buddha kingdom. My soul can be big or small, and I can enter this Buddha kingdom, no matter how small it is. As soon as the soul phantom entered the macro carving Buddha kingdom, this Buddha kingdom, the outside is like a macro carving, but the inside is as big as a country. Sudong immediately found it extraordinary. The macro carving is the appearance, and the real world is inside. Is this what the Buddhists say about putting Mount Sumeru in a mustard seed? The white-robed Sudong soul thought secretly. This Buddha kingdom should be called Mount Sumeru Buddha Kingdom. This Mount Sumeru Buddha Kingdom is the real-life core of my Tuosh body, and it cannot be damaged. The white-robed soul immediately realized the importance of this Buddha kingdom. The indestructible golden body of the Buddha, entering Mount Sumeru Buddha Kingdom, the white-robed Sudong soul suddenly and naturally understood many messages. The white-robed Sudong soul was seen twisting and flowing like a stream of light. A golden body was quickly reflected behind the soul. This golden body looked like Sudong, with a body 3 feet tall, and wearing a cassock. On the cassock, there appeared strange tadpole scriptures. The golden body looked exactly like Sudong. The golden body Sudong waved his palm, which contained an inexplicable power, magnificently penetrating the space. A large handprint whistled like a meteor across the sky of the Buddha Kingdom. This Buddha's immortal golden body is really powerful. Sudong couldn't help but laugh. Immortal golden body. Similar to magical powers, and also similar to talent, there are also strong people who cultivate this magical power. Of course, there are also many levels, such as the Arhat golden body, the Buddha golden body, to Sudong's Buddha's immortal golden body. The golden body is best at defense, followed by attack. Of course, although the attack is slightly worse, Sudong is now at the level of a world god. When the immortal golden body is activated, the attack power is also at the level of a god king. Of course, the consumption of divine power to activate the immortal golden body is also huge. The attack consumption is greatly increased, so the immortal golden body is generally used for body protection. The immortal golden body of the Buddha. It is known as one of the strongest body protection magic powers in the void, and it is indeed well deserved. Sudong felt a mighty aura emitted by the immortal golden body. He felt that he could completely withstand Qi Jiuyang's full strength sword. The Buddha level body is indeed not called for nothing. Sudong continued to dig out a lot of information in the Zumi Buddha kingdom, and naturally learned another great secret of Tush's body. The strongest attack method, the Buddha kingdom in the palm. At the level of life, the Buddha level body is comparable to the innate creatures of the God Emperor level. Innate creatures have innate secrets, and he has inherited secrets. His inherited secrets come from the core of life, the Zumi Buddha kingdom. The Zumi Buddha kingdom is both his life core and the source of the most powerful attack secrets. The Zumi Buddha kingdom is not only the best soul defense treasure to guard the soul, but can withstand the soul secret attack of at least 2 levels higher, and urging the Zumi Buddha kingdom to attack is even more powerful. The Buddha kingdom in the palm. It is said to be one of the most powerful palm techniques in the void. Imagine how powerful Tush's body is with the strongest defense method and the strongest palm technique in the void. However, the martial arts in the world come from Buddhism. This sentence can be seen throughout many eras. The secrets, martial arts, and Buddhist teachings in Buddhism are the most widely spread in the 3000 eras, but how many people can really carry it forward? The secrets of Buddhist martial arts are famously powerful, but it is also extremely difficult to practice, and it is said to be extremely painful. Let's just talk about the 2 secrets of the Buddha Lord level immortal golden body and the Buddha kingdom in the palm that Sudong has understood at this moment. The Buddha Lord level immortal golden body requires great tempering and great treasures to forge the golden body. The golden body at the God King level is just the beginning, and the golden body at the God Emperor level requires a treasure that can be called a legendary adventure. The next level, the immortal realm, requires the outline of the origin of the way of life and the mastery of the breath of life. As for the Buddha kingdom in the palm, the entry is the God King level, and if you understand a trace of the origin of the way of death, you can reach the God Emperor level. Only by understanding the outline of the way of death can one truly unleash the magic of the kingdom of Buddha in the palm of one's hand. The 2 magic arts can be said to be unprecedented in history, but there are very few people who have truly achieved success. But my Tush body has a unique talent, so it is naturally twice the result with half the effort when practicing. The way of life and death runs through the path of cultivation of the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor. To achieve immortality, to be eternal in the void and to open up an era, one must thoroughly understand the origin of life and death. The indestructible golden body is the way of life. The kingdom of Buddha in the palm of one's hand is the origin of death. The 12-layer heavenly sword method, the 5th level, the sword of extinction. I have been practicing for such a long time, and gradually discovered that it should be the evolution of the origin of the way of death. This book was recently updated in #@. Update. Different paths lead to the same destination. The 2 major attack methods both contain the way of death. Naturally, they can learn from each other. That page of the Buddhist scriptures. Sudong's white-robed soul finally focused his attention on the Buddhist scriptures floating above the kingdom of Buddha. The Buddhist scriptures were full of tadpole script, and he didn't recognize any of them. But he saw mountains as mountains and water as water. Buddhaland in the palm. Sudong looked at that page of the Buddhist scriptures, as if he saw the future. A body that was exactly like him was standing on the top of thousands of mountains, using his divine power, and waving his palm. With one palm strike, the world shook and thousands of mountains collapsed. Boom. There was only one palm print between heaven and earth, floating in the air, and in the palm there was a huge Buddhaland, which crushed everything in heaven and earth, and suppressed all living things. Wow. The scene changed. The scene in the scripture changed. It turned into a void, a vast and endless cold and dark void. Sudong was suspended in the void with a knife, and suddenly swung the knife out. Wherever the knife light passed, the void fell into silence. Is this the future? Too strange, too magical. This page of Buddhist scriptures can reflect the future? Too magical, it's incredible. Sudong's face was full of shock. I obviously haven't mastered the Buddha kingdom in the palm. I haven't mastered the 5th level of the heavenly sword technique. I have very little understanding of the way of death. I obviously have very little understanding, but this page of scriptures has evolved the future. Let me see stronger and farther palm and sword techniques. I can feel the mystery of the way of death contained in it. Sudong was amazed. He didn't look at the scriptures. All the scenes disappeared. There were no palm techniques, sword techniques. Even the slight fluctuations of the way of death that he had faintly felt before were gone. The Buddha kingdom is still the Buddha kingdom. He is still the same him. The slanting moon reincarnation cave seems to be ordinary. He tried to activate the secret method, but there was no trace of the mysterious power he felt in the previous picture. This page of Buddhist scriptures can explain the future. It's like a future me asking me to observe. Sudong said secretly. Chapter 413. Practicing secret skills in Wooden Man Lane. A page of Buddhist scriptures expounds not only the future, but also the origin of the way of death. Through future achievements, the mysteries of the great Dao are presented to Sudong. Sudong tried to see the future scene of the immortal golden body, but no picture emerged. This page of Buddhist scriptures only evolved the secrets and wonderful arts of the way of death. This is a page of the Death Sutra, which records the outline of the origin of the way of death. It can evolve a rough model of the way of death, and peek into the future. Even if the perception of the way of death is extremely low, it can still be used to peek into the outline of the origin of the way of death. Amazing, unbelievable. Sudong couldn't help but admire. This page of Buddhist scriptures runs through the 3000 eras of the slanting moon reincarnation cave. Its origin is extremely extraordinary. It can exist forever in the reincarnation slanting moon cave that reflects 3000 eras. Can it be an ordinary thing? The transformation of the Buddha level body gave birth to the life core of the Zumi Buddha kingdom. Although I only obtained 2 secret methods, my greatest gain was this page of Buddhist scriptures. I could glimpse the outline of the origin of death. The outline of the origin of death is reflected in front of me. It allows me to observe the future sword and palm techniques at all times, so that my method can point directly to the great way without taking detours. This is much faster than my own random thinking and groping for understanding. Sudong took a deep breath. This page of Buddhist scriptures is of great and incredible value. If it spreads to the void, it will probably cause a bloody storm at the level of the God Emperor Immortal Emperor. Of course, a page of Buddhist scriptures is suppressed above the Zumi Buddha kingdom of Sudong's Tuosh physical body. When other lives look at it, it is just that the mystery is very unfathomable. Only when Sudong's Tuosh physical body looks at it, can he see the mountains as mountains and the water as water, and there are scenes emerging. The wonderful technique and secret method containing the outline of the origin of death are reflected in it. And that is indeed the ultimate technique of the Great Way, and its value is inestimable. It should be less than 3 months before the king's battle. Sudong thought to himself, what I have to do now is to use my soul to observe this page of the Buddhist scripture in the eternal time and space. Then I will study the 5th level of the heavenly sword technique in the Buddha kingdom in the palm. Of course, in terms of attack, the 5th level of the 12 heavenly sword techniques is better than the Buddha kingdom in the palm. After all, it is known as the most terrifying sword technique in the void, with unparalleled power. However, the Buddha kingdom in the palm is very suitable for Tusha's physical body to practice, and through the use of Tusha's physical body, the power is also increased. And both touch the outline of the avenue of death, and the two can learn from each other and comprehend together. 3 months. These 3 months are the period of my strength explosion. Sudong took a deep breath, accumulating strength, and comprehending for such a long time in the slanting moon reincarnation cave. It is time to explode these accumulated insights. The transformation of Tusha's physical body and the power of the Buddha Lord level physical body are fully revealed. It can be said that Sudang has taken a big advantage in this reincarnation's Lanting Moon Cave. After all, most of the time, ordinary life can only comprehend the way of life and death when entering the Xiaohu reincarnation cave, but Sudang gained a lot and directly obtained a page of Buddhist scriptures that runs through the ages. It is a great opportunity to have this page of Buddhist scriptures. Continue to practice. Sudang smiled. His figure flashed again and entered the white eternal time and space. Time slowed down 100 times. After entering the eternal time and space, his soul immersed in the Zumi Buddha kingdom. In the Zumi Buddha kingdom, the white-robed Sudang soul appeared. The interior of the Buddha kingdom is infinitely vast. In order to practice the Buddha kingdom in the palm and the immortal golden body, there is also a special wooden manlane space. Sudang's white-robed soul entered the interior of the Buddha kingdom and walked into a magnificent and towering palace. There was an inconspicuous large building in it. Inside the building, there are many passages arranged in order. The first passage is called Wooden Man Lane. In the Wooden Man Lane, various densely packed wooden lives have been prepared. There are monks, mortals, and even tall and strange monsters. At a glance, there were a total of 999 wooden men in the Wooden Man Alley. All of them were staring at Sudang. Once he entered, he would be attacked by these wooden men in an instant. You must enter the Buddha kingdom in the palm and master the peak power of the God King before you can pass through this Wooden Man Alley. Sudang looked at the line of small words on the wall of the Wooden Man Alley. By receiving many messages from the Zumi Buddha kingdom, he also learned many mysteries in this Buddha kingdom. After obtaining the two great secrets and magic arts of the Buddha kingdom in the palm and the immortal golden body, Sudang learned that the vast and magnificent Zumi Buddha kingdom, as the core, has a place dedicated to practicing these two great secrets. As for cultivation, the immortal golden body pays more attention to tempering, and the Buddha kingdom in the palm is more inclined to attack. Attack and practice require opponents to sharpen and test. Naturally, this treasure land for practicing secret arts was born. When it comes to cultivating strong people, no one dares to say that Buddhism is second. Void martial arts came from Buddhism, and this is not nonsense. There are many wonderful methods and secrets that are the most numerous and diverse, and also the most famous. In battle, there are magic techniques for attacking. Some Buddhas have cultivated themselves to be extremely powerful, and a single finger or a single punch can shake the heaven and earth, and the Buddha kingdom in the palm is a unique Buddhist art that can shock the void. For defense, there are also secret techniques for protecting the body, such as the immortal golden body, and even the legendary lotus body, nine tribulations body, etc. Plus the Zumi Buddha kingdom itself is the core of the treasure that protects the soul. The attack of the soul can also be resisted. As for the body technique, there are also various secret techniques for dodging and moving. It's just that Sudang has never obtained it. However, no matter how many secret techniques there are, they all end up in the same place and will eventually fit the origin of the great Dao of heaven and earth. The origin of the great Dao of heaven and earth is equivalent to the foundation and branches. With a strong foundation and thick branches, thousands of branches can naturally be extended. The unique Buddhist art is famous in the void in every era. Some strong people can rise all the way and shock one side, while others are unknown, and eventually turn into a handful of yellow earth in history. The same principle proves that this book has been updated recently in Update. The secret skills only give you a path, so that you can feel and understand along this direction. You will gain something, and eventually transform it into powerful strength. Strength is the ultimate goal. It's okay to have a strong secret method, and it's also okay to have an invincible magic. The body method is the best in ancient and modern times, and it is invincible, and it can also shine. Like Sudang defeated Qi Jiuang, it was a secret method of the soul. Do people say that Sudang took advantage? No, because the secret method of the soul is also strength. It can defeat the enemy. There is no difference between the secret method of the soul and the secret method of fighting. Of course, Sudong's secret method of the soul was okay to deal with Qiji Huayang at that time, but if he encountered a stronger soul, his secret method of the soul would be ineffective, and the secret method of the soul had too high requirements for the soul, and it was more difficult to improve the soul. So if Sudong wanted to make himself stronger before the King's War, he had to hone his swordsmanship and palm method. In terms of the power of magic, there is no difference between the two. They can even learn from each other. In terms of the degree of cherishment, the 12-layered heavenly sword technique and the palm technique of the Buddha kingdom in the palm are both top-notch skills that are famous in the void. Even the Holy Spirit Void Ancestor is extremely eager to obtain them. The realms of the two are very similar. There are a total of 5 passages in this training building. To enter the wooden man alley, you need to master the top power of the God King level. The bronze man alley requires the power of the God Emperor level. The iron man alley, the golden man alley. According to the information Sudong learned, after passing the golden man alley, your strength is comparable to that of the average Holy Spirit Void Ancestor. There is also the last stone man alley. That is even more legendary, and few Holy Spirit Void Ancestors have passed through it. The same principle applies to practicing sword techniques and palm techniques. They all need to be sharpened. Entering the wooden man alley requires the top power of the God King level. My sword technique power is now at the top power level of the God King. Both of them touch the way of death, and can learn from each other, and compare with each other. Sudong decided to rely on the wooden man alley to hone his sword techniques and palm techniques. Chapter 414. The king returns before the final battle. After breaking through the boundary god, Sudong was in eternal time and space again. After a long period of training, Sudong's swordsmanship had made great progress, and he even mastered the 4th level of the void sword. The strength is simply incomparable. But strong power does not mean strong enough strength. Sudong's white-robed soul transformed into a long sword, and he entered the wooden man alley. My swordsmanship is as powerful as the top level of the God King, and it should be easy to get through this wooden man alley. Sudong thought so. Whoosh! The sword flashed, and he rushed in instantly. Puff! A piece of wooden palm print instantly slapped on Sudong's forehead. Boom boom boom. In an instant, I don't know how many wooden legs kicked Sudong. Damn. Sudong's soul was directly shattered by the violent attack. Then a figure of Sudong's soul condensed again in front of the wooden man alley. He was still in a white robe, but at this moment, he looked at the wooden men in the wooden man alley who were staring at him covetously with some difficulty. This wooden man lane, this is too difficult. Obviously, each wooden man is not powerful, but he was crushed. Is it because my proficiency in swordsmanship is too poor? Although I have mastered the 4th level of Xian Wei Xian swordsmanship, my proficiency is too poor. The technique is too brutal and rigid. Sudong shook his head. Yes, let me first see where my swordsmanship is inferior to the top of Dantian. I now have my future self to observe. Sudong's heart moved. He has a page of Buddhist scriptures. Through the swordsmanship of his future self in the Buddhist scriptures, he can find out his current shortcomings. Well, let's do it. Above Zumi Buddha Kingdom, white-robed Sudong appeared in front of the Buddha Kingdom in a spirit state, looking up at a page of Buddhist scriptures. Suddenly, the many tadpole scriptures written on the Buddhist scriptures disappeared, turning into a pitch-black storm that swept the entire earth. This time it was the 4th level of the 12-level Xian Wei Xian swordsmanship. Void into a sword. In the pitch black storm, Sudong stood in the air in a black outfit and drew his sword. The entire void was deformed and twisted. In the pitch black storm, there was a pure black sun-like substance rising into the sky, rising and falling, like a strong wind rising up to 90,000 miles, and a strong wind falling across the 14 continents. In the picture, the mystery technique revealed by the 12-layer outer heaven sword technique seemed to be Sudong himself performing that sword. The extremely complex and powerful sword was faintly in line with Sudong's soul and state of mind. It's too strange. There was a trace of excitement in the eyes of the white-robed Sudong's soul. He could clearly feel the power, strength, and angle of the sword technique in the Buddhist scripture picture. It was extremely familiar and clearly mastered. It's this sword. Sudong pursued this feeling, and immediately began to imitate that sword, repolishing his own sword of emptiness. In the wooden man alley, Sudong rushed in again with a sword. This time he swung the sword, and wherever the blade passed, terrible sword lights crisscrossed. The power of the top level of the God King burst out. The dark storm of sword light swept the entire wooden man alley space. The sword light submerged 99 wooden men. But there were still 900 wooden men rushing up in an instant. Just a moment. After Sudang defeated 100 wooden men, he was instantly smashed by the remaining 900 wooden men. These 999 wooden men are really good at siege, and their cooperation is flawless, but they are indeed suitable for the polishing of my sword skills. Before reading a page of the Buddhist scriptures, I couldn't defeat a single wooden man, but after reading a page of the Buddhist scriptures, I can defeat 100 wooden men. But his sword skills level has not changed. The same sword. Obviously this sword skill has greater potential for him to explore. Sudang is completely immersed in the polishing of his sword skills. At the same time, he also carefully practiced the unique skills of the Kingdom of Buddha in the palm. This set of palm skills is naturally suitable for his tush body. It was created by the real Buddha of Buddhism, and its power and mystery are infinite. More skills are better. While practicing two unique skills at the same time, Sudang was able to maintain the quality of both. This knife and this palm are very similar. Immersed in the practice of Cheyenne Waishan knife method and Buddha kingdom in the palm, Sudang seemed to be able to touch the origin of the way of death, and gradually understood the mysteries of it. Everything seemed to be a natural process. Time passed day by day. 100 days passed in the eternal time and space, and 1 day passed in the outside world. 3 months passed in the outside world, and 300 months passed in the eternal time and space. This was the longest time Sudang had ever practiced. But it was not boring, and he did not feel bored. The 5-colored stone clone could feel the joy of Tuoshi's physical body. However, since Sudang entered the reincarnation slanting moon cave, his 5-colored stone clone could not be contacted, but he felt something in the dark. Sudang's 5-colored stone clone was polishing his bloodline body, while cultivating many treasures of heaven and earth, strengthening his soul, and occasionally killing powerful monsters at the level of demon kings. This book was recently updated in #@. Update. Tush's clone was completely cultivating to comprehend the origin of the way of death, while practicing palm techniques, while practicing sword techniques. At the same time, he was also honing his immortal golden body. He practiced hard day and night. He went through the wooden man alley and honed himself. Under this high intensity training, Sudang's strength was doubling almost every day. The reincarnation slanting moon cave was hidden in a long unknown era, with different time and space. About 3 months had passed in the Yellow Spring Road time and space. A full year had passed in the reincarnation slanting moon cave. On this day, in front of the Green Mountains, between the waterfalls, a 10,000-foot figure appeared on the edge of the era. It was the Lord of the Mansion who was still elegant. Sudang had been waiting at the entrance of the reincarnation slanting moon cave. If I had known that I could only stay in the reincarnation slanting moon cave for 1 year, I would have kept track of the time. 1 year, not a day less, the Lord of the Mansion came. Sudang, dressed in a black robe, stood in front of the reincarnation slanting moon cave. He respectfully saluted the 10,000-foot tall Lord of the Mansion. Greetings, Lord of the Mansion. You came out early to wait, so I didn't have to call you. A smile appeared on the Lord of the Mansion's face. Look at your smiling face. You must have made a great harvest. Sudang was about to say something modest. He would not say anything about the page of Buddhist scriptures if no one asked him. No need to say more. Whatever you get is what you deserve. There are countless opportunities in my Huanquan Daofu, and this is just one of them. Things in this place cannot be told to the outside world, remember. The Lord of the Mansion smiled. Sudang blinked. He is really rich and powerful. Yes, I think it is a great opportunity and a great treasure, but in the eyes of a strong man like the Lord of the Mansion, I'm afraid it is just some small things. Let's go. Half a year has passed in the Huanquan Road space-time. It will be the King's War soon. The entire Void Range, the Endless Era, the gathering of the true genius kings, to hold the King's War. Little guy, you represent our medieval era, you must work hard. Wow. The 1,000-foot tall Lord of the Mansion held Sudang in his palm, and returned in the era at lightning speed. The world of the 9 realms. Winter is coming again. Early morning. Sudong's 5-colored stone clone was in the Void Temple, watching the snowflakes floating outside the temple. The snowflakes were falling, covering the entire Xiangquan city, and wearing a layer of silver on Xiangquan city. A smile appeared unconsciously on his lips. I can smile, even when I see the snow. Thinking about the old elephant monster you killed a few days ago. Some time ago, there was an old elephant monster at the level of the god king of the demon race causing trouble in the Jinding River. Sudong went to kill it, and the battle was quite noisy. Feng Lao Rongzi looked at Sudong in front of him, and there was a trace of trance in his eyes. In a blink of an eye, the weak young man in the small world has grown into a strong man at the level of the god king, and his true strength is even close to that of the god emperor. And his reputation in the ancient country of the 9 realms is unparalleled. Really? It made her dazed. It's my Tush clone. Sudong smiled, watching the snow outside covering the endless land. Just now, he learned that his Tush clone had returned, and not only had it returned, but his strength had greatly improved. Chapter 415, Swordsman. Half a year later. Tomorrow is the King's Showdown. Sudong's 5-colored stone clone looked at the snowflakes floating outside the Void Temple, and he was looking forward to it. In the many Void eras, all the genius god kings who amazed the era, according to the level of activating the king's order. Among these many geniuses, I'm afraid that the weakest one is at the level of Qi Jiuang. In a powerful sect, there are very few gods who master the power of the god king level. They can be said to be invincible at the same level. However, in the gathering of all the eras and the entire void, there are many gods who have mastered the limit of the god king, and are infinitely close to the power of the god emperor, immortal emperor. And if it is magnified to the entire vast void era, there are nearly 1,000 such amazing genius gods. After all, there are many great eras, and on average, there are only 1 or 2 people in an era. Just like in the Middle Ages, where Sudong was, the Huangquan Daofu treated the 9 crown kings specially, and arranged special rewards to improve their strength. It is conceivable that this kind of genius is amazing for an era. As long as they are allowed to grow up, they are destined to become the top powerhouses of an era. This shows its importance. Sudong, come on. Feng Lao Rongzi cheered for Sudong. Haha. Sudong couldn't help but laugh. There was a strong confidence in his smile. In the void, I bet on the swordsman. The swordsman will definitely be in the top 100 of the king's battle. The swordsman is the strongest. I also bet on 5,000 heaven and earth crystals. In the Huangquan spectator seat, the Huangquan Daofu even opened a handicap, allowing people from all eras to bet on their geniuses. In the 9 realms ancient country, the Blood Lord sent a message to Sudong. Sudong, try to rush up, the higher the better. The Lord of the 9 realms ancient country even said publicly. Sudong, you represent our 9 realms ancient country. Although the genius kings who can amaze the times in each era of the void are all extremely evil, so many evils are all terrifyingly strong, but you have to cheer up, for our 9 realms ancient country, and for yourself. Now the Lord of the 9 realms has completely regarded Sudong as a fire of the future of the 9 realms ancient country, and tied him tightly. But Sudong didn't object. The 9 realms ancient country helped him a lot, and his 5-colored stone clone was originally reincarnated in the 9 realms great world, and was also considered a member of the 9 realms ancient country. Yes. Sudong also responded one by one. For so long, because of the relationship with the Xiangquan family, Sudong's sense of belonging to the 9 realms ancient country has become stronger. The outside world is in turmoil. In the Void Pavilion in the Yellow Spring Road, a full 100 Yellow Spring Dao Palace Kings gathered here. The Palace King took Sudong away quietly, and no one noticed when he sent him back. Many kings in the Void Pavilion walked out of the pavilion today and gathered in a floating giant city. In the Sky Giant City in the Yellow Spring Road. Whoosh. Sudong's figure appeared at the edge of the giant city. King, please come this way. Standing on the edge of the giant city, a god king level heavenly soldier wearing dark and simple battle armor respectfully led Sudong. Although he was a god king, his attitude was extremely respectful. In Huangquan Daofu, under the king there are many subordinates such as heavenly soldiers and ghost soldiers. The status of the king is much higher than these soldiers. Sudong Tuoshi's clone looked calm, nodded and followed him. After a while, he passed through a huge corridor. Then he saw a dojo with beautiful flowers and plants blooming everywhere, divine birds and beasts flying in the sky, and various spiritual springs flowing in all directions. In the dojo full of Taoist connotations, hundreds of people are gathering, among which there are many men and fewer women. But most of them are handsome, beautiful and moving. After all, they are the top talents in the void, which can be called amazing and gorgeous. How can they be ordinary? The swordsman is coming. That's the swordsman. Many geniuses looked over. These hundreds of people are all Huanquan kings who have passed through Huanquan Road. Although they are not as good as Sudang, they are also kings with 1 or 2 crowns. They are qualified to see the world and participate in the king's decisive battle. But the treatment is far worse than that of Sudang and other 9 crown kings. The swordsman was the strongest in Huanquan in their era. He stood out from the crowd and crushed everyone. It was stressful to watch him from afar. Obviously, after half a year, the swordsman was obviously stronger. Sudang. Swordsman. In the crowd, the silver sword god and the thunder fire immortal flew over with a smile. The silver sword god was still in a white robe. He carried a silver long sword on his back. The thunder fire immortal changed into a more gorgeous fairy robe, shining and colorful, very showy. Flying all the way over, this outfit also attracted the attention of many kings. Did you see it? That's the thunder fire immortal. His strength is average, but he just relied on the swordsman and became a 9 crown king. He is so lucky. The 9 crown king has different status and resources in the Dao mansion. He got a lot of resources to cultivate him as soon as he entered, and now he has become a world immortal. See, if you don't have enough strength, you can't keep the 9 crown king. Everyone talked about it, without transmitting the sound, but directly discussed it verbally. Sudang heard it clearly. The competition between the kings in Huanquan Dao mansion is very fierce. The ranking determines how many resources they enjoy, so it is normal to compete with each other. Lihuo, you are too ostentatious in this robe. Sudang looked at the Lihuo celestial fairy, whose body was full of light and colorful, like a peacock spreading its tail, and couldn't help but send a message. After all, they had fought side by side, and had drunk and discussed together a lot, so of course they were very familiar with each other. This book has been updated recently in #@. Update. Swordsman, you don't understand. Celestial fairies can be weak, but they can't be coquettish. Lihuo's celestial fairy blinked. Su was speechless. Swordsman. Many genius kings greeted Sudang respectfully. After all, he was the 9 crown king, with strength and status that surpassed them, so he had to have a minimum etiquette. Zun. Zhaozu. Sudang also saw Zun, the fellow villager who had always been low-key, but finally showed a very strong soul secret method, greeted him, and Sudang also took the initiative to respond. Zun, who was not conspicuous in the crowd, immediately attracted a lot of attention. And Zhaozu, after greeting Sudang, she waved her hand, and a burst of purple fairy fire burned the gorgeous fairy robe of Leihuo Shanzan, without giving Leihuo Shanzan any face. As time passed, the kings arrived one after another. When there were nearly 100 kings, Qi Jiuang, wearing a red tattered robe, carrying a magic sword, strode into the dojo. He arrived very late. As he walked into the dojo, many kings made way for him. In terms of deterrence, Qi Jiuang and Sudang can be said to be the same. They are both the strongest and ruthless people in the field. 100 kings gathered in the dojo. Many of them met in the ranking battle, or were in the same team before, and they were discussing Taoism and law in Twasan 3s. Swordsman, your swordsmanship should have improved a lot in the past 6 months. Qi Jiuang looked at Sudang with a burning gaze. I know that you have received a special reward, and you must have made great gains. Sudang couldn't help but look at Qi Jiuang. There is some progress. Very good. When we fight again, I will definitely defeat you cleanly. Qi Jiuang grinned. So confident? Sudang also smiled. Although Qi Jiuang is belligerent, he has a straightforward personality. The two of them competed head-on, and had a good impression of each other. Suddenly, buzz. An invisible Dao aura instantly permeated the entire dojo. This Dao aura contained a terrifying pressure, which made the faces of many kings present change slightly. Some of the weak souls couldn't help but tremble. Then, in front of the entire dojo, The space twisted, and a huge figure that was 10,000 feet tall walked out. The huge figure had a huge mouth and nose, and a pair of eyes like two suns in the dark night, emitting scorching light and divine flames. The most peculiar thing was that there were two huge bull horns on its head, and the horns seemed to be able to pierce the sky easily. This huge bull-headed man had an incomparable powerful aura, which was terrifying. What a group of cute little guys. Seeing you is like seeing me, when I was young. At that time, I was still a calf. The huge Minotaur's voice boomed, and his 10,000-foot figure standing there gave people infinite pressure. But what he said made many kings present a little stunned. Little calf. The 100 kings really couldn't imagine what the 10,000-foot tall bull-headed Holy Spirit looked like when it was a little calf. Chapter 416, The Void of Mountain and Sea Realm. That's off topic. Little guys from the Middle Ages, behave well and don't let us down. I will take you to the real core void of the Dao Mansion. The voice of the bull-headed man roared like thunder, and his two sun-like eyes looked at the 100 kings below with a scorching gaze. You can call me Old Bull. I'm the Shura King under the command of the Shura King of the Bianji Palace. You are also the kings under the command of the Shura King of the Bianji Palace. Greetings to the Shura King. None of the 100 kings dared to be arrogant, and they all bowed and saluted, including Sudong and Kijiwang, who all saluted respectfully. Any Shura King of the Huangquan Dao Mansion is not comparable to these kings. It seems that these Shura Kings, every Shura King, is much stronger than the King Xiangsu. Sudong had seen the Lord of the Mansion and the bull-headed Shura King, and then thought about the King Xiangsu. It was obvious that the King Xiangsu was not a little bit inferior. What a terrifying power. Silverblade God even broke out in cold sweat. His soul was not as good as Sudong and Kijiwang, so he could only barely maintain normality. Thunder Fire Celestial Immortal's immortal body had already trembled. This bull-headed man should be the legendary bull-headed king, one of the 10 Azura King warriors under the command of Bianji Palace Azura King. His strength is terrifying and shocking. Thunder Fire Celestial Immortal transmitted the voice. Fear. The previous second, he was still thinking about the words of the giant bull-headed calf, and the next second he was shocked by the power and pressure emanating from him. In front of this power and pressure, they were like ants, although in fact they were not even ants in front of the 10,000 feet tall bull-headed man. The fear in their hearts engulfed their beliefs like a solar eclipse. This is an instinct, fear, and fear instinct. Even the most powerful soul, the most powerful world god and immortal, cannot suppress this instinct. Swordsman. Bull-headed Azura King suddenly looked at Sudong in front of the crowd. Lord Bull-headed King. Sudong bowed. Well, your soul is indeed strong enough, the strongest among these little guys. The Lord of the Mansion is optimistic about you, and says that you can become a great man, but I don't believe it. The bull-headed Shura King said bluntly. Sudong couldn't help but frown. The bull-headed Shura King smiled and said, of course, compared with other little guys, you are still good. This time, I'm more optimistic about Kijiwang. Kijiwang's foundation is unmatched by all of you. He can rush into the top 50 of the king's decisive battle. The swordsman can only rush into the top 150 at most. There is no hope for others. Suddenly, the 100 kings raised their heads unwillingly. Haha, you are not convinced. It's useless to be unconvinced. The bull-headed king joked. Sudong was speechless. This bull-headed Shura King could only look up to Kijiwang and did not look at others. He was okay. The other kings, such as the Silver Knife God, Zhaozu, Guangai Hao, Zun, etc., who is not arrogant. The Lord of the Mansion is optimistic about the swordsman. This bull-headed Shura King is optimistic about Kijiwang. He is not optimistic about them at all. For the past 6 months, I have been practicing immortal arts. Wait, I will shine in the king's decisive battle. Each genius was holding back his anger. The bull-headed Azura King smiled and shook his huge head. He knew what these little guys were thinking. However, the truth was cruel. This time, all the amazing geniuses from all eras will gather together, and among them there is even a king who has amazed one of the 10 palaces Azura Kings of Dao Mansion. That king has been selected by the 10 palaces Azura King as a registered disciple. He has also seen the king fight. At that moment, he was almost blinded by shock. Too strong, not comparable to these little guys in our medieval era. Even Qi Huang is not on the same level. I can only rush into the top 50? Qi Huang frowned. He has been practicing hard for the past 6 months, and the Six Suns ancient country has provided him with a lot of resources, and brought him to a strange reincarnation era, where time flows more slowly. It seems that half a year has passed, but in fact he has practiced for 3 years. After 3 years, his soul secrets had already been perfected, and his realm had broken through. His swordsmanship had advanced further, and he had touched the outline of the origin of death. His strength could be said to have skyrocketed. Just like this, he actually said that he could only break into the top 50? HMPH, just wait and see. Even if I can't break into the top 5, I will break into the top 10. Amaze many generations. Geniuses are all arrogant, let alone a peerless genius like Qi Huang. Su Dong just frowned and calmed down. Strength is not something you can talk about, but it must be demonstrated in battle. What this bull-headed shuriken thinks is his business. His face was calm. After the bull-headed shuriken, who was 10,000 feet tall, hit these little guys, he grinned and waved his hand. Boom. This book was recently updated in #@. Update. On his 10,000 feet tall body, a huge palm swept across the dojo. The kings in the dojo stood in the palm of the bull-headed shuriken like rice grains. Let's go. Before the 100 kings could be surprised, the surrounding scene began to change dramatically. The void turned upside down, and the huge body of the bull-headed shuriken began to travel through the era. Su Dong had seen it once on the Mansion Master. It was still calm. The other kings were shocked. Traveling through the era, what kind of method is this? What kind of divine body is this? These kings who were originally unconvinced were once again shocked by the power of the bull-headed shuriken. The bull-headed shuriken took them through the era, and they didn't know how many void eras they had traveled through. Suddenly, the bull-headed shuriken stopped, and the 100 geniuses standing in the latter's palm looked at the scene ahead. This is a vast world. There is a giant pillar-like mountain in the center between heaven and earth, supporting the sky above and the earth below. The river is running between heaven and earth. The bull-headed shuriken, who is thousands of feet tall, seems ordinary in this vast world. Because a sacred tree on land is over 100 feet high, a big fish is hundreds of meters long, and there are snakes over 100,000 meters long wandering in the forest. The three-legged golden crow burning with sacred fire is flying in the sky. At the end of a mountain, there is a crawling alien species, which is covered with black scales, has ferocious long horns and a single eye. When the single eye is open, it is bright for thousands of miles. When it is closed, it is dark for thousands of miles. The rushing river flows into the sea, and the 9-headed golden crow flies west. The red afterglow of the flame falls on the sea, and the sea water is reflected in a bright red, and the sea and the sky are connected together. The sea water and the clouds have turned red. Boom, boom. There was a loud noise at the edge of the sea. Su Dong and other kings who were standing in the palm of the bull-headed shuriken turned their heads to look, and everyone's faces suddenly changed. A green behemoth climbed onto the shore from the sea. From a distance, it looked like a small hill. But if you look closely, it was a giant cyan crocodile over 10,000 feet long. Although it was a giant crocodile, if you look closely, you can see that its thick cyan back was covered with a layer of extremely huge and sharp thorns, like cyan war spears. This giant cyan crocodile was not only huge, but also covered with cyan scales all over its body. Each scale was the size of a basin. From a distance, the scales emitted a cold light, making it look particularly ferocious. This giant crocodile had 4 strong and powerful claws. Each claw had a huge claw with a cold light. It crawled out of the ocean, roared to the sky, and opened its bloody mouth, as if it wanted to swallow the golden crow in the sky. This extremely terrifying roar shook the surrounding seawater and rolled, and the mountains and forests shook. Such a mighty force was really earth-shaking. Su Dong and others stared at the scenes in front of them with wide eyes. Wow, a colorful divine bird flew in from a distance. It flew in front of the bull-headed shuriken, saluted respectfully, and spoke in human language. Everyone, welcome to the void era of the mountain and sea realm. Chapter 417, The Gate to Mount Buzhao. The legendary beasts appeared in this era, and powerful gods and immortals roamed in this void. Even if they were only at the edge of the void, Sudong and others could hear the soul-stirring, deafening roars of inexplicable beasts that soared into the sky. This void era is older than any other void era. It is the legendary origin of life. It is extremely large and enjoys the worship of endless void eras. One void era is a complete world. In this world, there are ancient Tyrannosaurus Rex, powerful crocodile dragons traveling in the ocean, and golden winged rocks that penetrate the sky and soar up to 90,000 miles. There was a rumbling sound in the sky. The divine bat with purple flames waving its grey withered wings shuttled through the sky. It flew over the vast land, over the endless ocean, and over the ocean. The calm sea suddenly boiled up, as if a tsunami had occurred. The sea water steamed up a majestic mist, reflecting colorful light under the residual red afterglow of the three-legged golden crow. The huge divine bird kept circling over the sea. It was not until it gradually flew away that the sea surface slowly calmed down. The ferocious crocodile dragon looked up at the distant divine bird, opened its bloody mouth, and roared to the sky, then moved its huge and ferocious body, turned around and slowly walked into the ocean. It was immersed in another more mysterious world. Is this the void of the mountain and sea world? Sudong was shocked. The legendary void era, the origin of gods and immortals. See that high mountain? That should be the pillar of heaven. But how mountain? Li Hoshiangson also admired. I can feel that there is a complete Dao in this void. Silver Knife God was also very excited. The king's decisive battle in the void of the mountain and sea realm. It's worth it. Many kings secretly exclaimed in their hearts, and at the same time carefully observed this world. Let's go. The bull-headed Shura king's voice boomed, dragging 100 kings in his palm, and striding forward in the mountain and sea realm, following the colorful divine bird towards Mount Buzhao. On the way, from afar, I saw a huge holy spirit that was 10,000 feet high. The blue-haired Shura king, who showed a broad chest, had a large number of kings standing on his shoulders. From a distance, they greeted the bull-headed Shura king. Sudong and others also saw the many kings on the Shura king. Many kings looked at each other and saw the fighting spirit in their eyes. They are all top kings from different void eras. Sudong said secretly. There was also a strong fighting spirit in his eyes. How happy it would be to be able to fight against these kings who amazed each era. Although the bull-headed Ashura king was not optimistic about himself, that was based on his performance in the king ranking battle. After experiencing the enlightenment of the slanting moon reincarnation, coupled with the nearly 18,000 days of hard training in the eternal time and space, his strength had already made a great breakthrough. Especially the transformation of the Buddha-level Tush body, which made his strength have made great progress. Of course, he is making progress and moving forward, and other kings are also making progress. Sudong did not dare to be careless, but he was still full of confidence in his heart. The kings who were amazing and brilliant in the endless era of the void gathered for a battle. This battle is not only about whether they can become the core king training of one of the 10 palaces Ashura kings, but more importantly, the strong men of the endless void era. Even the real high level of Huan Quandaofu will pay attention to this battle. All the way to this point. Fight to your heart's content. Sudong's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. In the mountain and sea realm, there are thousands of rolling mountains. There was a grey mist rising and surrounding the mountain. Suddenly, wow, the grey mist parted, revealing a huge palace shining with golden light. The palace emerged from the grey mist, and a large number of powerful gods and immortals flew out of it. The weakest ones were at the top level of God King, and most of them were God Emperors. Behind this group of gods and immortals, there was a huge black beast circling out. The black beast had 4 legs, a single horn on its head, and its body was covered with scales. The aura of this beast was overwhelming and extremely powerful, but there was a golden chain hanging around its neck, and the chain was dragging a large chariot. The chariot was very simple, and it was broken and damaged in its simplicity, but the aura was extraordinary. There was even eternal blood of God left on the edge of the chariot. Sitting on the chariot was a handsome man wearing a crown. This handsome man had no expression on his face. His eyes contained an incomparable death aura, and his face was grey. He sat there, like the incarnation of the origin of death. Wherever he passed, there was a dead zone. And wherever his eyes went, the vitality of all living beings seemed to be easily deprived by him. This terrifying aura made the god emperors and immortal emperors beside him extremely awed and surrendered. The chariot moved forward to the outside of the mountain, and a large number of strong men followed behind the chariot. There were also extremely beautiful female celestial beings on both sides of the chariot, who could amaze the void. These female celestial beings, even the immortal emperor level fairies, were extremely obedient and accompanied this man. It seemed that it was their great honor to be able to serve this handsome man so closely. "Is it the Deo Mansion King battle today?" the handsome man asked. "Yes, your majesty," the beautiful maid beside him responded quickly. "Let's go and take a look." Yes. A team quickly headed towards the direction of Buzzhow Mountain. The closer they got to Mount Buzzhow, the more giants, that were thousands of feet tall, were advancing at high speed. Sudang stood in the palm of the bull-headed Shuriking, looking at the many powerful holy spirits that were almost advancing side by side with the bull-headed Shuriking. There are so many people. Sudang, Silver Knife Heavenly God, Thunderfire Heavenly Immortal, and even Kiji Huayang couldn't help but look at the king standing in the hands, heads, or shoulders of those giants. This book was recently updated in #@. Update. How many people are there? A conservative estimate is at least 300,000 people, 100 people in one era, 3,000 great eras. Just thinking about it makes people feel numb. I used to have the confidence to charge, but seeing them, I'm shaken. Thunderfire Heavenly Immortal whispered softly, "Little guys, this king battle is different from the past. You have to perform well." The voice of the bull-headed Shuriking resounded in the ears of Sudang and others. Different from the past. The bull-headed Shuriking's words made the 100 kings in his palm look at each other in bewilderment. Standing in the palm of the bull-headed Shuriking, under the guidance of the 7-colored divine bird, they moved forward all the way. This progress really made everyone understand what it meant to run to death. Seeing that Buzzhow Mountain was just in front of them, but according to the speed of the bull-headed Shuriking, it took nearly a quarter of an hour to reach the extremely huge Buzzhow Mountain. Buzzhow Mountain was too vast and huge. It was called the Pillar of Heaven. It supported the sky above and the earth below, connecting the heaven and the earth. You could still see the whole picture at the edge of the void, but when you got in front of it, you couldn't see the whole picture at all. You could only see a dark mass of mountains blocking the way ahead. A huge rock on it was as big as a small world outside. South Mountain Gate. Sudang and others saw a towering mountain gate in front of them. The mountain gate was like the gate of heaven, hundreds of thousands of feet high. It could only be seen clearly in the palm of the bull-headed Shuriking. If you were standing on the ground, you might not be able to see the words on the gate tower at this distance. From now on, the kings who participate in the King's War will climb the mountain by themselves. The 7-colored divine bird spoke. In front of the South Mountain Gate, dozens of giant holy spirits arrived. Then, tens of thousands of kings were confused. Before they could react, they were thrown to the ground. Sudang, Kiji Huayang and others were among them. "Let's go, Neotao, let's go drink." Mission accomplished. I haven't been to the mountain and sea realm for a long time. This time, I must ask that monkey for more of its fine wine. Many holy spirits and void ancestors strode away together and disappeared in Buzzhow Mountain in the blink of an eye. As the Shurikings of Huanquan Deofu, they were obviously very familiar with each other. Mountain Gate. Many kings looked at each other, but many of them immediately walked towards the mountain gate in front. Kiji Huayang, Sudang and others also walked towards the South Mountain Gate. Chapter 418. Kings show their power. Just send us to the foot of Buzzhow Mountain and leave us alone. This Buzzhow Mountain is so high. It is said that it is up to the sky. How high should we climb? The kings who did not know the details looked at each other. The holy spirits left without explaining clearly. Sudang and Kiji Huayang walked among many kings. They were both relatively silent. They were the strongest in Huanquan in the Middle Ages. They strode forward. 9 realms, Shianquan City, the Mountain Gate. Sudang, this mountain gate is strange. I'm afraid it is a test before the king's decisive battle. Feng Lao Rungs he was very wise and said to Sudang's 5-colored stone clone at the first time. Yes. Sudang nodded. The king's decisive battle. It should have been a decisive battle between the top kings, but there are too many kings coming this time. Obviously, many of these kings are not qualified. This mountain gate should be the first threshold. Many kings will be eliminated. Sudang's face was calm. He did not dare to say that his Tuosh body was the strongest among the kings, but he also had a certain degree of confidence. If we can't even climb the first mountain gate, we have no face to participate in any decisive battle. Just as Sudang guessed, many of their kings had just entered the mountain gate. Boom. A huge gatekeeper god general suddenly appeared in front of them. The gatekeeper god general was 1,000 feet tall, covered with golden armor, and looked at the many kings in front of him with a pair of eyes that were piercing the sky. I opened this gate, and I guard this mountain. If you want to climb the mountain gate, you must pass me first. The gatekeeper god general was full of momentum, and his voice boomed throughout the world. Gatekeeper god general, is this a test for us? At this time, many kings reacted. The momentum of this gatekeeper god general should be only at the top level of the god king. We can easily pass it. Charge. Immediately, the kings rushed over in a swarm. But the gatekeeper god general grinned, and a series of light curtains appeared in front of him, covering the entire mountain gate, blocking all the kings there. Some kings even rushed too fast and hit the light curtain directly, and were directly bounced out. All the kings paused. The mountain gate was vast, and so many of them could only be regarded as small here. Haha, stupid, really stupid. The gatekeeper laughed. Boom. As he laughed, a sword light suddenly lit up. The sword light was like a rainbow, and it tore through the space in panic, and directly penetrated the light curtain. 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers. The light curtain has 6 layers in total. Swish. The sword light was like a rainbow and directly penetrated the light curtain, and rushed through the mountain gate, and then turned into a red figure, and rushed towards the mountain at a high speed. Is that Qi Jiuyang? Did he break it directly with a sword? So strong. In an instant, many kings looked at that figure, and many of them showed a frightened look. The sword just lit up. The sword light was like a rainbow, which made them feel terrified. The kings from various void eras felt that it was a terrible opponent. Look at his king's mark. He is only a 7-crown king. Is a 7-crown king so powerful? Which era is he from? The kings immediately started to discuss. A strong man will shine wherever he goes. Humph. With a cold snort, the cold goddess walked out of the crowd with a cold face. The divine power field of the world god level emanated from her. There was a king's mark on her forehead, emitting the power fluctuations of the mark. 9-crown king? 9 crowns? Many kings were in an uproar. My sister said that this goddess is called Ukiashin, and she is the top king of the Danghua Void era. She was accepted as a disciple by Ashura king in the Taoist palace. Li Hoshiangsan sent a message to Sudang. In the Huangquan Taoist palace, the kings with Shura king as their backer and those without Shura king as their backer are treated differently. Sudang watched the 9-crown king goddess rush over. A terrifying long shuttle appeared in his hand. The long shuttle was swung. Puff. A sharp sound of breaking through the air sounded, and many kings only saw a flash in front of them, and did not see the trajectory of the long shuttle flying out. The 6 layers of light curtains at the mountain gate directly broke a small hole, and the goddess Uqiyu flew directly in. What a fast speed! Sudang exclaimed. In terms of speed alone, the goddess Uqiyu is better than him. And the long shuttle is extraordinary, and it seems to have touched the outline of the origin of death. The other kings who were blocked were either shocked or amazed. Only then did they realize how outrageous the gap was. To be a 9-crown king is indeed extraordinary. Another 9-crown king. Suddenly, the crowd was in turmoil again. A young man in white clothes, holding a snow-white spear, and his waist as straight as the spear came out. He also had the mark of the 9-crown king on his forehead. This book has been updated recently in #@. Update. The gun demon Du Gusheng, the strongest man in the void in the ancient chivalrous era. As soon as Sudang saw this young world god, he heard an exclamation in his ear. Understand that this is another terrifying king. Gun demon Du Gusheng solemnly walked to the light curtain, dragging his black spear in one hand. The spear was just an ordinary spear, and Sudang could not feel the slightest power on the spear, but in Du Gusheng's hand, it seemed to pierce the sky. Du Gusheng swung the spear in his hand and immediately stabbed it straight. In an instant, the black spear shadow with the phantom of power like a swimming dragon stabbed the light curtain angrily, and 6 layers of light curtains were instantly penetrated. Good spearmanship. A deafening cheering sounded, and many kings could not help but look at the gatekeeper god who was 1,000 feet tall. The gatekeeper god actually cheered for Du Gusheng. This gatekeeper god also uses a spear. Silver Knife god couldn't help but say, because he used a spear, he cheered when he saw Du Gusheng's spearmanship. It shows that Du Gusheng's spearmanship is powerful. Gun Demon Du Gusheng also walked into the mountain gate. I'll do it. Silver Blade god gritted his teeth and stepped forward before Sudang. He and several other world gods broke through the gate together. The south mountain gate was too big, hundreds of thousands of feet wide. If they were not world gods with far-sighted vision and extraordinary perception, they would not be able to see each other. Even if a group of people broke through together, they would not affect each other. Another 9-crown king. Some kings saw the king mark on the forehead of Silverblade God, and their attention was immediately focused. Sudang and Thunderfire Celestial Being and others also looked over. At the same time, Guanggai and Hao Zhaozu and other kings also went to break through the mountain gate. Guang Hao's strength broke through the world god. When he walked to the front of the mountain gate, he was good at the secret method of soul and spirit. He condensed a slender sword out of thin air. The sword turned into substance and stabbed directly on the light curtain. 6 layers of light curtains were broken into 3 layers, and then Guang Hao's face turned pale. Failure. He was also a king who could rank in the top 10 in the Yellow Spring Road in the Middle Ages, but he couldn't enter the gate of Buzhao Mountain. Zhaozu's long red whip burned with flames and directly burned a big hole in the 6-layer light curtain and entered the mountain gate. This female celestial being was as violent and terrifying as ever. After walking in, she looked back at Sudang. Swordsman, I will defeat you this time. Zhaozu transmitted her voice through the air. After breaking through the realm of the celestial being, the latter seemed to have gained a lot of confidence. Sudang smiled. He watched the Silverblade god perform strange and erratic swordsmanship, which finally broke through the 6-layer light curtain with difficulty, and rushed into the mountain gate. Swordsman, wait a minute, I'll go first. The Thunderfire Celestial Being suddenly stopped Sudang, and he strode forward. Many eyes looked over. Another 9-crown king? Exclamation mark. But then, the Thunderfire Celestial Being condensed a purple flame giant hammer with great momentum, and the giant hammer smashed directly on the light curtain. Then, not only did one layer of the light curtain not break, but the giant hammer bounced back and hit him on the forehead, and he immediately retreated in embarrassment. Haha. The gatekeeper gods couldn't help laughing. The other kings were all staring with wide eyes. Can this also become a 9-crown king? Sudang was speechless. He did not comfort Lei Huo Xiangsun. He thought he was embarrassing. He wanted to pretend that he didn't know him and walked straight to the mountain gate. It was his turn to break through the mountain gate. Another 9-crown king. Haha, it seems that he is with that world fairy. Why is he walking towards the gatekeeper? Many kings of the times looked at the black-robed king walking in front of the gatekeeper in surprise. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 419. One sentence to defeat the general. Before arriving at Mount Buzhao, Sudang had truly seen how talented and brilliant the kings of the various eras of the Void were. However, although they were all top kings from various eras of the Void, as the saying goes, there is no first in literature, and no second in martial arts. There are still differences in strength. A mountain gate is the best gold panning sieve, which keeps the inferior ones out of the mountain gate. Only the truly strong ones can enter Mount Buzhao and continue to sprint upward. Climb. Qi Jiang, Du Gusheng, and Goddess Yuqiu, who had seen them before, were all extraordinary, very strong. Their strength also made Sudang's fighting spirit boil, although it was just a mountain gate. But he could also vaguely glimpse the powerful strength of these kings, such as the gun demon Du Gusheng from the ancient hero Void era. He also heard that the young man holding a spear was the strongest king in this period of time in the ancient hero Void era. That Du Gusheng's spear. The phantom of power transformed from the spear tip. The spear shadow alone has a trace of death breath entangled. That is the true outline of the origin of the way of death. Sudong was also secretly shocked. Being able to touch the origin of the way of death made him feel a little oppressive. This is just the South Mountain Gate. In the 3000 Void eras, nearly 300,000 kings of the stunning era gathered. How many peerless kings will come? But you are strong, and I'm not weak either. Sudong stepped forward in a black robe with a calm face. This is the first mountain gate of Buzhao Mountain. It is only the first mountain gate, and he does not need to use all his strength. That is the swordsman. The kings from the Middle Ages saw the figure of the black-robed young man walking in front of the gatekeeper, and all of them burst into a fanatical expectation. The strongest man in Huanquan in the Middle Ages of the Void, the swordsman, is finally going to break through the mountain gate. In their hearts, the swordsman is the strongest. The 12 heavens and the outer heavens shocked the Void in all eras, and it was not blown. Swordsman? Why do you all look like that? Seeing this, the many kings who had casually looked at Sudong before all understood that this young man in black robes had a great reputation. They were not blind, and they could naturally see how much respect the kings from the same Void era had for the young man in black robes. This young man in black robes is very strong. 9 Crown King. Check him out. He's called Swordsman. Many kings of the Void era sent messages, paying attention. Now the mountain gate is only the first hurdle, and those who can show their extraordinariness at this hurdle must be treated with caution. A group of kings were climbing the mountain gate at the foot of the mountain, but they did not see that in the sky as high as 9,000 feet. A group of guards at the level of God Emperor and Immortal Emperor were surrounding a chariot and coming to the South Mountain Gate. The handsome man wearing a black crown on the chariot easily saw the scene below with his grey eyes through the clouds and mist. Have you started to break into the mountain gate? He raised his palm, and the four-legged beast that was pulling the chariot in the air stopped immediately, and the whole team also stopped. Your Majesty, we are just climbing the first mountain gate. There is nothing to see. There are 3 gates to climb the 4 peaks of Buzhao Mountain. This is the first one. An extremely beautiful female fairy emperor said with her red lips. Some little guys. There are 16 who have touched the way of life, and 72 who have touched the way of death. He ignored the beautiful female fairy emperor next to him, silently looking down, and easily saw the direction of the road taken by each king. If you have realized the way of life, your divine body and soul will exude endless vitality. If you have realized the way of death, you will inadvertently reveal the aura of death. Of course, this aura can be easily blocked and hidden. However, although all living beings are living beings, it is difficult to live, but it is easy to die. Those who can touch the way of life are often much fewer than those who can touch the way of death. He is a top existence with great achievements in the way of death. You actually walked in front of the gatekeeper? This great existence looked down from afar. Even the many powerful people such as the Divine Emperor and the Immortal Emperor who were accompanying him looked down. Sudong. Among the kings, Lei Chuo Shiangson looked at him. He was embarrassed, but in his heart he hoped to see Sudong show his divine power and shock the many kings here. Little guy, why don't you climb the mountain gate and come to me? The huge gatekeeper god widened his two shining eyes and roared at Sudong, his voice booming. I'm here to make you make way for me. Sudong instantly activated the application in his Dantian mobile phone. The sole secret method of the Dragon Elephant Come God Bell was activated. Since breaking through the boundary god, his soul has already made another step forward. The soul has reached the peak level of the limit of the God King, and one step away from the level of the God Emperor and Immortal Emperor. In an instant, the soul secret method ignored the distance in the void, and ignored all material obstacles. It rushed into the soul ocean of the gatekeeper god in the ferocious form of the 3 heaven-covering beasts of dragon, elephant and kun. A huge bell shadow emerged out of thin air, and the surface of the god bell was wrapped with strange Taoist essence, and there were endless golden thunder and lightning inside. Ding ding ding. The first level of the Dragon Elephant Kun God Bell spectrum rang. A layer of sound waves like a raging wind and huge waves instantly swept through the soul sea of the gatekeeper god. The gatekeeper god realized it later and wanted to stop it, but the Dragon Elephant Kun God Bell rang, and the magnificent sound of the bell easily penetrated the entire soul sea of the gatekeeper god. The gatekeeper god only felt that his ears and mind were full of deafening bell sounds, and then his eyes went black, and his huge body collapsed directly to the ground. The moment the god fell, the light curtain in front of the mountain gate also disappeared. Without any obstruction, Sudong stepped forward and walked straight into the mountain gate. That kind of demeanor, as if just saying one sentence. I'm here to ask you to make way for me. The gatekeeper god fell. Although this gatekeeper god's body is strong, his soul is too weak. It's about the same as Qi Jiuang in the god stage. Sudong glanced at the god who fell to the ground, secretly thinking that this is a common problem of innate creatures, and then walked towards the mountain. As soon as he left, the gatekeeper god woke up. As soon as he woke up, he stood up from the ground. Where are the people? Where are the people? Where is the guy who attacked me? He waved his spear and looked around with his eyes wide open. This book has been updated recently in .. Update. Many kings were stunned. Soul secret technique? What a powerful soul secret technique. It directly knocked down the gatekeeper god general. Many kings of the Void era stared. Haha, the swordsman's soul secret technique. The mountain gate is not worth the swordsman's sword. Thunder, fire, celestial, immortal, and other kings laughed. Sudong's soul secret technique is very strong. Stronger than mine. In the crowd, the faces of the Kwasi people showed shock. The gatekeeper god general could wake up in an instant, which shows that his soul is powerful. It is possible to knock down this god general. Even if it is just for a moment, it is scary enough. Haha, this mountain gate general is still so stupid. On the chariot in the sky, a handsome young man smiled. When he smiled, the death aura around him seemed to dissipate instantly. Laughed. Your Majesty actually laughed. That little guy actually made the great lord of Pan's Hang Mountain laugh. The many powerful people accompanying him were all very surprised, and at the same time, looked at Sudong who was climbing the mountain below. A little guy at the level of a world god is not a congenital creature. He should have inherited the top soul secret method. But this soul secret method is okay for dealing with the gatekeeper gods. It is still far from standing out among the many kings in my Deo mansion. His soul secret method can be blocked by a soul defense magic weapon. Many powerful people talked about it in voice transmission. Because their majesty paid attention, they also paid attention. If there is really potential and highlights, of course they can be guided and received as soon as possible. But their eyes are so sharp that they can see the limitation of Sudong's strength at a glance. At present, it's just that his soul is stronger, not too outstanding. Soon, one king after another began to climb the mountain gate. Sudong continued to move forward. His Majesty in the sky continued to watch him with great interest, as if he wanted to see how far this young fellow who knocked down the goalkeeper could go. Chapter 420. Goddesses have always loved to pretend. After passing the first mountain gate, Sudong climbed the mountain road at high speed. With his speed at the level of a world god, he could travel thousands of miles in the blink of an eye and quickly shuttle upward. But suddenly Sudong frowned, and a more terrifying stream of light instantly passed by his side. Swish! The stream of light was like an arc of electricity, instantly tearing through the space and rushing upward. A swordsman from the Middle Ages. I come from the Taihang Void era, nicknamed Lightning. The arc flashed and disappeared from Sudong's sight in an instant. After it disappeared, the voice of the voice transmission sounded in Sudong's ears. Lightning? What a fast speed. Sudong paused, without stopping for long, and continued to rush forward. Not long after, he saw the second extremely huge mountain gate standing on the extremely wide stone platform in front of him, which was tens of thousands of acres. In front of the mountain gate, one king after another looked at him. They all rushed up earlier. The kings gathered here included Qi Jiuang, Silver Knife God, Zhaozu, Goddess Yukyu, Gun Demon Du Gusheng. Dozens of top kings from different void eras turned their heads almost at the same time, looking at Sudong who was walking in the distance. Silver Knife God smiled and took the initiative to walk over. Swordsman, you are too slow. Qi Jiuang frowned and sent a voice message to Sudong. According to his guess, Sudong should be right after him, but he was so late. It's more lively down there, take a closer look. Sudong smiled and responded with a voice message. Qi Jiuang didn't say much. Zhao Zu glanced at him and didn't say anything through voice message. I don't know why this female fairy who practiced fire magic was always cold. Because the four of them came from the same void era, they stood in a dark place. The platform was too big, and these kings didn't affect each other here. Su Dong looked at the mountain gate in front of him. Behind the huge mountain gate stood an old man half asleep and half awake. His eyes were bleary, and he was leaning on a cane with a green snake wrapped around it. Standing there, a faint stream of black smoke rose from behind him. There was even a hideous crack under the old man's feet. It was unknown how deep the crack was. This was Mount Buzhao. Although compared to the huge mountain, this was still the foot of the mountain, but there was hot magma flowing in the crack. A stream of extremely hot air erupted from the magma in the crack, all converging on the old man. The old man squinted his eyes, as if he was enjoying it, and black smoke rose from his body. What are you waiting for? Su Dong glanced at the many kings on the platform, and his heart moved. These kings gathered in groups of 3 or 2, some of them knew each other, and some were extremely indifferent. But they were all kings of Huan Quandaofu, and no one would rashly attack anyone without permission. Swordsman, this second mountain gate needs to wait for 300 people to enter. The silent silver knife god suddenly transmitted a message. Su Dong nodded. At the same time, he was secretly shocked. This Buzhao mountain gate really wiped out many kings. Only the second gate alone only waited for 300 kings, which meant that the first mountain gate would block nearly 67,000 kings. Su Dong had just roughly estimated that there were about 70,000 kings at the foot of the south 3 gates. Of course. According to the level of the first mountain gate, at least you have to reach the level of the silver knife god to climb the mountain. In a void era, there are more than 4 or 5, and less than 1 or 2. How to break through this second mountain gate? Su Dong asked in a voice transmission. I don't know. The old man guarding the mountain gate only said that he would wait until there are 300 people. Don't disturb his sleep. The silver knife god responded. Just now, the goddess Yukio refused to believe in evil and tried to force her way through the door, but was hit on the buttocks by the old man with a cane. In short, she was in a very embarrassing situation. Su Dong was stunned. He glanced at the goddess Yukio inconspicuously. The goddess was wearing a Taoist robe. Although she did not wear makeup, her skin was as white as cream and her eyes were as clear as autumn water. The whole person had an ethereal Taoist essence. The realm of the realm god level gave her a unique aura. In terms of appearance alone, this goddess can be said to be beautiful enough to suffocate people. It is said that in the void era where this goddess lived, she was obsessed and pursued by countless strong men. Fortunately, this mountain climbing road was not watched by people, otherwise the scene of this goddess being beaten by an old man and her buttocks would probably shatter the eyes of a group of strong men. And it seemed that she was too sensitive. Su Dong's inconspicuous glance also made the goddess Yukio frown. A murderous aura spread instantly. With such a violent temper, who else can I hit if not you? Su Dong ignored the goddess, retracted his gaze, and thought to himself. However, when Su Dong looked at the old man in the second majestic mountain gate, there was a hint of admiration in his eyes. Yukio, don't make trouble, that swordsman is very strong. A short king saw the goddess Yukio looking at Su Dong with murderous eyes, and couldn't help but speak. Humph, lightning, when did you become so timid? The goddess Yukio looked coldly at the king next to her. Although they did not belong to the same void era, the two had contact under special circumstances. Lightning was helpless. He casually reminded her, but was said to be timid. This book has been updated recently in .. Update. You will know in a while. He transmitted a voice, and then said nothing more. The goddess Yukio had a frosty face, comparable to Zhao Zu, a fairy and a goddess, as if both had ice on their faces. Goddesses have always loved to pretend. Su Dong thought to himself, and then ignored her, and sat cross-legged in meditation. This Buzhao mountain is a holy place in the void era of the mountain and sea realm. It has a long history of Taoism and rich spiritual energy that is far beyond the outside world. A group of kings are waiting here. It took half an hour to wait, and within half an hour, one king after another arrived. Some of the best among them are even not inferior to Qi Huayang and Du Gusheng. For example, one of the kings holding a giant hammer has an extremely ugly face and only one arm, but the aura of power emanating from his body can be called the most powerful among all the kings. He is also a strong man who directly stimulated the king's order to qualify for the king's decisive battle. Overlord Liu Tong, one of the most evil kings of this generation in the void era of the battle domain. Although he is a congenital creature, he suffered a great disaster when he was young, so his body is incomplete. His mind is also defective, but his talent and strength are incomparably terrifying. The Silver Knife God sent a voice to Sudong. This is a king who is not inferior to Qi Huayang in any way, an absolute creature of the bloodline of the God Emperor Immortal Emperor. Liu Tong's eyes are cold and bloodthirsty. It makes people shudder. This time, the king's order was triggered to come to the void of the mountain and sea realm, which made many kings retreat and no one dared to approach him. But there were constant discussions, and everyone was guessing how strong Liu Tong was. Of course, he is a madman. When he just came to the second mountain gate, this domineering king directly held his giant hammer and hit the old man in the gate with a hammer. When the hammer was smashed, layers of grey-brown light emerged from Liu Tong's body, and the hammer turned into a grey-brown phantom and smashed on the old man's head. As the explosion sounded, the old man threw Liu Tong's giant hammer away with his crutch. But at the same time, the cracks on the ground under the old man's feet were even more broken. The power of a hammer shocked all the kings. Strong. All the kings present had to admit that Liu Tong was an extremely powerful king. Sudong was shocked. Liu Tong was simply a monster. Finally, 300 kings arrived. Boom. A huge figure rushed up from the bottom of the mountain. Where is a little guy who attacked me? The gatekeeper of the first mountain gate rushed up, and once he rushed up, he kept looking for him. Finally, he saw Sudong at a glance and immediately rushed over, but then he looked at Sudong with vigilance. The other kings who came later all looked surprised. Qi Huayang, Zhao Zu, Silver Knife God and Uqiu Goddess who had arrived earlier were all secretly shocked when they saw this. The gatekeeper is afraid of him. The face of Uqiu Goddess changed slightly. Chapter 421, Special Care for You. How could he make the first gatekeeper at the foot of the mountain so fearful and alert? The first few kings who arrived were not stupid people, and they all immediately understood that this young man in black robe was extraordinary. The cold eyes of the goddess Uqiu glanced at Sudong coldly, and then retracted her gaze. But there was obviously less contempt in her eyes. The swordsman, from the void in the Middle Ages, is good at the secret method of soul. At the foot of the mountain, he directly knocked down the gatekeeper. Lightning and the goddess Uqiu communicated. Suddenly, Sudong's fame began to spread among the kings. Good at the secret method of soul? The secret method of soul is the most bizarre. You have to be careful of this swordsman. Even Qi Huayang and Zhao Zu heard that Sudong directly knocked down the gatekeeper, and they immediately looked at Sudong and the gatekeeper with strange faces. No wonder the gatekeeper was afraid. The secret method of soul is hard to defend against, and if he can be knocked down once, he can be knocked down a second time. Qi Huayang had experienced Sudong's soul secrets and still remembered them vividly. In the Middle Ages, many powerful kings emerged. The sword-wielding Qi Huayang is said to be very powerful, and his strength is not inferior to that of Overlord Liu Tong. Many kings talked about it. They all felt pressure. Of course, Sudong was just weird and unpredictable. But people like Qi Huayang and Overlord Liu Tong really made them feel extremely oppressed. Especially Overlord Liu Tong. Although Qi Huayang was strong, he was rationally strong, while Liu Tong was completely a bloodthirsty madman. But this madman also had extremely terrifying strength. He had figured out the outline of the origin of death, and his foundation was extremely powerful and solid. Even the God King and God Emperor would feel trembling in front of him. He was one in a million. Moreover, Liu Tong, who was only a world god, was so terrifying. He was also a congenital creature at the level of God Emperor and Immortal Emperor. As long as he did not die in the middle of the journey, he was destined to become a God Emperor and Immortal Emperor. It was so terrible that even many holy spirits and ancestors in the Void Era cultivated Liu Tong as a treasure, and Huang Quandao Fu even specially authorized him to trigger the king's order. I really don't want to fight with this Liu Tong. This was everyone's thought. Although Liu Tong is strong, his character has a big flaw. Sudong's heart moved slightly. Generally, those with obvious flaws in their character will not be that strong. But there must be a reason for Huan Quindeo Fu to grant the king's order. Liu Tong should not be underestimated. Sudong thought to himself. He weighed many kings and looked calmly at the tall god in front of him. After glaring at Sudong, the gatekeeper god strode directly into the second mountain gate with his huge body and spoke something in front of the old man. But no sound came out, and even the shape of his mouth was blurred by the distortion of space. It was obvious that after the gatekeeper finished speaking, the old man in the second mountain gate turned around and looked at Sudong carefully, with a strange smile on his face. "It's over, swordsman. You seem to be targeted by that old man." The silver knife god communicated with Sudong. The goddess Uqiu and others looked at Sudong with some gloating. Sudong shook his head helplessly. At this moment, the old man who was originally in the second mountain gate suddenly took a step forward. Boom! With one step forward, a series of magma fire pillars suddenly erupted behind the mountain gate. There were a total of 150 magma fire pillars, which fell into the mountain gate, and instantly turned into the figures of 150 old men, each holding a cane, but except for the old man in the front, who had a green snake wrapped around his cane, the rest had no clones. 150 old men appeared in the mountain gate. Each of them had a monstrous aura and exuded an extremely hot and terrifying aura. Even though they were at a long distance, Sudong and his 300 kings still felt a wave of hot air coming towards them. All of them immediately felt the power of the old man. "Here is the second gate of the South Mountain Gate. You 300 kings must pass this level before you can move forward. Each of you must fight against my clone. What you have to do is to defeat my clone. There are 300 people in total, 150 people in each group. Come on, don't waste my time." The old man stretched out his cane, and the space in front of the cane instantly twisted, affecting the platform. In an instant, the entire huge platform was divided into two parts, one in front and one in the back. Each part is 150 kings. Sudong and Silver Knife God are in the second group. Qiji Huang and Zhao Zu are in the first group. Those who are defeated by me will all be thrown down the mountain and go back to where they came from. The old man's voice was magnificent, with the faint sound of the Great Way resounding in the ears of many kings. Following closely, the first 150 kings did not hesitate at all and rushed into the mountain gate in an instant. They all wanted to rush to Buzzhao Mountain, so how could they be afraid to stop here? One by one, they rushed into the mountain gate and fought against the 150 clones of the old man. I just spent a lot of divine power to break through the first mountain gate, and I'm not ready yet. That old man's clone is also very strong. At least he has the strength of a divine emperor. Look at Qiji Huayang's swordsmanship. Sudong and Silver Knife God were watching from outside. Being assigned to the back has its advantages, as you can see the old man's methods clearly. Similarly, you can also see the methods of many kings. Once many kings make a move, the level of power is immediately judged. Qiji Huayang's swordsmanship is even stronger, and Du Gusheng's spearmanship is really terrible. That old man was actually suppressed by Liu Tong. Sudong watched safely from outside. Among the 150 kings, the most outstanding one is Liu Tong. Inside the mountain gate, Overlord Liu Tong was wearing a suit of armor, swinging a giant hammer with one arm. His ugly face was distorted, and his eyes exuded a terrifying bloodthirsty light. He attacked the old man in front of him frantically. Boom. A giant hammer smashed down. A huge Dao pattern diagram with a diameter of several dozen feet appeared directly on his giant hammer. Many strange and ferocious beasts appeared in the diagram, which was extremely ancient and complex. As soon as the Dao pattern diagram appeared, it directly covered Liu Tong's body. Then, accompanied by a roar, the ancient Dao pattern diagram burst out a beast-shaped light towards the old man in front. Bang! The beast-shaped light hit the old man in front of him wantonly. The old man's clone held a cane to block it for a while, but the impact of the beast-shaped light instantly shocked the old man and made him fly out. He rolled in the air, and then another giant hammer. This book was recently updated in #@. Update. Too strong. This is a complete suppression. There is no grace at all. This Liu Tong is a human-shaped beast. Many kings outside, and even the kings who were fighting with the old man inside the gate, felt the madness and terror of Liu Tong. In less than a moment, Liu Tong smashed the old man's clone directly, and then rushed towards the mountain without stopping. Swish! A rainbow light pierced through the eyebrows of one of the old man's clones. Qi Jihuang looked back at Su Dong, and then turned into a sword light, and rushed towards the mountain. What a strong swordsmanship! Many kings exclaimed. Fighting inside the mountain gate, many kings outside the mountain gate watched. This is the best opportunity to understand the strength level of each king. The old man's clone, each one has just reached the level of God Emperor and Immortal Emperor, and the attack power is not strong. The most outrageous is Liu Tong, and then Qi Jihuang. These two are too strong. Gun Demon Du Gusheng is also very strong, but he seems to be more cautious. Many kings discussed quietly, and the Silver Knife God was also a little solemn. Su Dong said nothing, and the Uqiu goddess in the distance would occasionally cast her eyes over. They were all the second batch. Some of the inferior ones began to be defeated. Among the 150 kings, it would be good if 50 were left. Su Dong estimated. Boom. 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 One by one, the kings were knocked off the mountain by the old man's clone. In the end, the first group of 48 kings broke through the second mountain gate. Waste. These kings of the Void Age. Each generation is worse than the previous one. The many gods and immortal emperors who accompanied the handsome young man to watch the battle shook their heads. The second group has begun. Huh? What's going on? Why did the old guy Mengsh come up in person? The strong men above were surprised. Inside the mountain gate below, Su Dong looked at the real body of the old man in front of him, leaning on the cane wrapped with green snakes, and couldn't help shaking his head. You really take care of me. He smiled. His eyes were still calm, but when he looked at the real body of the old man in front of him, his expression became serious. It's just a special cure for you. The gatekeeper god who looked at this place from afar turned his big head and face up and grinned. The second update will be later. Thanks to the millions of rewards from the website. Chapter 422. The sword skill dazzles the era. That swordsman is going to be in trouble. Is the old man's real body the one he's fighting against? The second wave of kings who entered the mountain gate and started fighting the old man's clones all looked over. The 150 clones of the old man in the mountain gate remained constant, and even those that were defeated and dissipated before were recondensed. This is enough to show how strong the old man is. The loss of his clones is not a problem at all, and they all have the power of the Divine Emperor and Immortal Emperor, not to mention his real body. The old guy's real body is much stronger than his clones, and he can easily defeat me. Goddess Uqiu silently watched Su Dong fighting against the old man's real body. She had suffered at the hands of the old man before, and remembered the lesson deeply, feeling extremely ashamed. Later, Su Dong seemed to be deliberately looking at her and commenting on her. She was very unhappy with Su Dong. Although she was not gloating at the moment, she was in a good mood to see Su Dong suffer. Swordsman, be careful. Silver Knife God reminded, but then there was no chance to care about Su Dong, who also had to fight against the old man's clone. This old man has the power of a god emperor. I can only defeat him if I use all my strength. I have come this far. I must try my best to get through this second mountain gate. Silver Knife God said in his heart. The silver long knife in his hand swung out silver knife lights, which distorted the space. The space within dozens of meters around him completely turned into a storm of knife lights. As soon as he came up, Silver Knife God exploded. Not only him, but also the king nicknamed Lightning, the goddess Uqiu who was like the spirit of the world, and many gods, all exploded their strength to fight the old man. After all, they had seen this old man take action before. With the experience of fighting the first batch of kings, they didn't need to test him. Boom. 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 Power was exploding everywhere. Su Dong looked at the old man in front of him. This old man is at least at the top level of God Emperor. Such a top powerhouse. His real body is fighting against me? Su Dong didn't care about the clones of this old man at all. But if this old guy shamelessly uses his real body to deal with him, no matter how strong Su Dong's secret technique is, he is destined to be killed by the former. After all, the gap in realm is there, and the gap is too big. I'm a king who came to participate in the king's decisive battle. There will always be a chance for me to pass. Since there is a chance, even if his real body is powerful, I'm not afraid. Sudong said in his heart. Little guy, you are unlucky. The old man looked Sudong up and down with an expressionless face, and the cane wrapped with a green snake in his hand suddenly poked forward. Boom. The space in front of Sudong was instantly pierced, and the surrounding world shook violently, as if it turned into a rippled mud in an instant. Then Sudong felt an extremely hot power enveloping him, and his whole body seemed to be trapped in a terrible furnace of heaven and earth. The cane in front of him, that was poking like thunder, and lightning was wrapped with dark light. Like a black snake. The mountaineering gate, setting obstacles and tests must have checks and balances. Do you really want me, a world god, to defeat this old god emperor, immortal emperor? It's unrealistic. Sudong looked calmly at the cane stabbing in front of him. But he activated the soul secret method in his mind, and the first level of the dragon elephant Kun divine bell was played. A huge divine bell suddenly appeared above the old man's soul ocean. The three giant beasts of dragon, elephant and Kun were surrounded by the divine bell. The beasts roared and circled, with endless power. The big bell rang, and the vibration formed a circle of sound wave power, rippling with magnificent and melodious bell sounds throughout the old man's soul ocean. Ding ding ding. The whole divine bell was like an extremely large air cannon. It rang and vibrated wildly, bursting out with strange golden light. The golden light contained the phantoms of the three giant beasts of dragon, elephant and Kun. The phantoms shuffled wildly, and each sound could stir up a large area of wind and waves in the old man's soul ocean. The sounds of the bells gathered together, a total of 7. The 7 bells rang, shaking the old man's face. Even the cane he was stabbing forward was tilted. He was a real strong man at the level of the divine emperor and immortal emperor. This soul secret method actually affected him violently. This shows how strong Sudong's soul secret method is. Such a strong soul secret method. If I really use my clone to deal with you, I'm afraid my clone will be stunned by your thought. The old man's eyes suddenly turned into a pair of vertical pupils, and dark flames burned in his pupils. It's a pity that you met my real body, whose soul is stable, and not afraid of your soul secret method. The old man sneered, and the cane in his hand turned from stabbing to sweeping. A large piece of divine pattern light formed a horizontal plane and hit Sudong's chest directly. This sweep was enough to reach the power of the middle level of the divine emperor and immortal emperor. Fortunately, this is the second mountain gate of the southern mountain road of Butha Mountain after all. As a gatekeeper, even if the old man wanted to make things difficult for the little guy in front of him, he would not do too much. If he used all his strength, his top power at the level of the divine emperor would burst out. Even if there were 10 more Sudongs, they would not be able to stop it. However, with the power of the middle level of the divine emperor, Sudong was still confident that he could fight. Break. Sudong's eyes suddenly became sharp, and he waved his long sleeves. The spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth immediately condensed into a light sword in his hand. The long sword was swung out in an instant, and all kinds of sword techniques gathered in the sword, and it was done in one go. Puff. The light sword blocked the divine pattern swept by the cane, and Sudong's footsteps could not help but retreat several steps behind him. The powerful power made the ground tremble. The power of this cane is only at the middle level of the divine emperor. Sudong immediately made an accurate judgment in his heart, and then a smile appeared on his face. Just stimulating the middle power of the divine emperor. Even if you are the real body, you can't beat me. 12-layer outer heaven sword technique. Sudong's mind moved. Boom. The power of his sword technique suddenly increased, and the fourth sword turned into a sword in the void. The dark sword light covered a piece of the sky and the void. In the void, there was a dark and terrible storm. The dark storm was extremely violent and powerful. This book was recently updated in update. As the most terrifying sword technique in the void, the 12-fold Cheyenne Waitian sword technique is enough to shock the void of all ages, and Sudong is famous for his sword technique. When the Cheyenne Waitian sword technique was used, it was like a volcanic eruption. Sudong swung the sword frantically, and the divine power in his body was fully stimulated. Sudong did not even use the 5th level of Cheyenne Waitian sword technique. After breaking through the realm of the god, his realm was higher and his divine power was more refined. To suppress the strength displayed by the old man at this moment, the 4th level was enough. Rumble. Sudong used all his strength to perform the sword technique, to suppress the old man. Cheyenne Waitian sword technique. The old man's face changed slightly. The cane was also waving constantly, and the hot and violent power kept erupting, surging. Go. The old man roared, and suddenly pointed a finger at Sudong. Power is a limit, what can you do to me? Sudong smiled. He casually slashed. In the light of the knife, a strange void star image appeared faintly, reflecting the scene of life and death. Boom. The knife light and the fingers collided. The old man's face changed again, and his fingers were retracted suddenly, never extended again. Wonderful magic. My swordsmanship has improved too much. The Cheyenne Waitian swordsmanship is not inferior to any wonderful magic. Once the sword light comes out, it will definitely dazzle an era. Sudong sighed in his heart. The transformation of Tush's physical body and the opportunity of a page of Buddhist scriptures in the Zaya Samsara cave made Sudong's understanding of swordsmanship more profound, and he pointed directly to the great way of swordsmanship. Sudong was completely fighting with the old man's real body. It seemed that neither side could defeat the other, but that was the old man's real body. His strength was so strong that he was close to the top powerhouses of the Divine Emperors. Even if the latter did not burst out with all his strength, it would still be extremely terrifying if he fought to this extent. What? The goddess Uqiu, who was fighting with the old man's clone, widened her eyes, and many waves rose in her heart. That swordsman actually had such strength? That sword technique. That is the 12-fold heavenly sword technique, and the 4th level is so proficient? Many kings were completely shocked. This swordsman not only has a powerful soul secret technique, but also a stronger sword technique. The heavenly sword technique is famous for its horror in all eras of the void. It is extremely difficult to practice. And the fact that he can use the 4th level of this sword technique so proficiently means that he may have mastered the 5th level. That sword technique. The divine emperors who were originally watching the excitement above all had strange eyes, looking at Sudong below, and then couldn't help looking at the handsome young man next to him. The latter had a calm look, and shook his head slightly. Chapter 423 Gathering at Siphon Peak. The sword technique is still a little bit off. This sword is too slow, and that sword is too soft. I haven't mastered the charm of the heaven beyond heaven. The handsome young man shook his head gently. His eyes fell on Sudong, who was fighting with the old man through the heavy clouds. The 12 heaven beyond heaven sword technique was dazzling, but in the eyes of this handsome young man, it did not seem to satisfy him. The same sword technique, different realms have different understandings of the sword technique. The higher the realm, the higher the view. For example, the 12 heaven beyond heaven sword technique, in the eyes of outsiders, it is extremely difficult to practice, but in the eyes of such a strong man, understanding the magic of it is the true meaning. The god emperor immortal emperor attendants beside the handsome young man saw the handsome young man shaking his head, and they immediately stopped talking. Donghu, it seems that his majesty is not very satisfied. A god emperor strong man quietly communicated with a immortal emperor strong man nearby. Of course he is not satisfied. Have you forgotten what weapon our majesty uses? A sword. Legend has it that when the great lord of Cheyenne Qi Rinsheng wanted to create the strongest Taoist magic in the void era, he read widely and invited the top masters of all eras in the void, especially those who have achieved great success in a certain Taoist magic. At that time, our lord of Pan's Hang Mountain also went. I remember that the 12-layer heavenly sword technique was born after that. It is precisely because the starting point of this sword technique is too high, and it was created by many top great beings. Once it is released, it will surely shock and dazzle the whole era and spread even more widely. It's just too difficult. I think the sword technique of the little guy below is already pretty good. Your Majesty is still not satisfied? That's what you think. How can your vision compare with your Majesty? Your Majesty is not satisfied because he can see the flaws in the sword technique of the little guy at a glance. They have followed this handsome young man for a long time, and their vision is far beyond that of the ordinary Holy Spirit Void Ancestor. Even the King War has been seen countless times. It really doesn't attract their attention unless it is a particularly evil king. Watching the battle below carefully at this moment, I still think this little guy's swordsmanship is extraordinary, and he should be able to break into the top 20. The God Emperor was quite looking forward to it. inside the second mountain gate of the South Mountain Gate. On the huge platform, 150 old men were fighting with 150 kings. Among these 150 kings, more than half were very embarrassed and were suppressed by the old men. The remaining 30 or so were not embarrassed, but they could only fight these old man's clones on paragraph. The rest, some defeated the clones and rushed upwards, and some were defeated and thrown down the mountain, and Sudang was the most dazzling one. From the beginning of the battle with the old man's real body to now, he has shown extraordinary strength, swordsmanship, and power. After breaking through the boundary god, his divine power is more solid and pure. Without using the extreme mode, the loss of divine power is not great. He is fighting completely relying on the Xianwei swordsmanship to suppress the old man's real body. This is the old man's real body. Even if I burst out with all my strength, I can't defeat him. 150 kings, and less than 80 are left. Sudang fought with the old man, while scanning the entire platform. Bang, bang, bang. A series of powerful roars rang out. Many kings were defeated by the old man's clone, and fell down the mountain. Although the mountain road is steep, the world god's body is so strong, that he can't die from this height. Haha, I finally passed the second mountain gate. I was forced to activate the forbidden secret method to pass this second mountain gate. It's terrible. There are also people who have passed the second mountain gate. Everyone showed joy and excitement on their faces. Just now they were all worried and afraid that they couldn't pass this second mountain gate. Once they passed it, the pressure was immediately dissipated. Then they paid attention to the many kings who were still passing the mountain gate. That goddess Uqiu actually broke in and didn't leave. She was looking at the swordsman. TSK, that swordsman is really strong. I was suppressed by a clone, but he was able to fight the old man's real body to a draw. What do you mean by a draw? Look, it's the swordsman who suppressed the old man. The king pointed to the mountain gate. Many kings also looked. Indeed, among the remaining kings, Sudang was the most outstanding. Especially after using the Xianwei sword technique. The sword technique became stronger and stronger in the battle, and completely suppressed the old man in terms of skills. The old man relied on his stronger divine power and high realm to resist. After a long time, he even felt a little stretched. This swordsman, I have never heard of it before, but he is so powerful. Many kings sighed. Suddenly, swish. The old man who was fighting with Sudang had a flash of light, and in an instant, the old man's body appeared 1,000 meters away. Stop. Sudang looked at the old man. I lost. You go up the mountain. The old man spoke directly, and the gatekeeper standing next to him looked at Sudang with an expression of great awe. He also clasped his fists towards Sudang, with a simple and honest expression on his big face. There was no more resentment from before. Sudang didn't say much. The light knife in his hand automatically dissipated, and he looked around. The first batch of 150 people broke through a total of 48 kings, and the second batch now has 52 left. It's almost done. The two batches are almost the same. 300 kings. Here, more than 200 were eliminated. Among them, the silver knife god narrowly defeated the old man's clone. Seeing Sudang win, he smiled and flew towards the mountain together. This swordsman is good at the secret method of the soul, and the sword method is the 12-layer outer heaven sword method. This book was recently updated in update. It's a tough opponent. The kings who passed the second mountain gate all remembered Sudang. Goddess Uqiu watched from afar as Sudang and Silverblade Heavenly God flew towards the mountain, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. She was born with a keen sense of perception, and this ability was greatly enhanced after breaking through the boundary god. She could easily sense Sudang's scrutiny before, but now, she felt that this swordsman was a terrible opponent. It even made her feel a kind of heart-pounding pressure. This swordsman was unfathomable, and seemed to be more terrible than Qi Jiuang, Du Gusheng and Liu Tong. Swish. This peerless goddess also turned into a stream of light and rushed upwards. Passing through the second mountain gate, climbing thousands of miles of mountain roads, moving forward all the way. Silverblade Heavenly God is the descendant of the Saint Lord of Jiuhua Mountain, and his body movement and speed attainments are extremely high. Sudang's void escape body movement is becoming less and less sufficient after breaking through the boundary god. Body movement has become a shortcoming of Sudang, but relying on the strong divine power, he can still keep moving forward at a high speed. About half an hour later, a small peak appeared in front. This mountain peak, it's called a mountain peak, but from a distance it's just a huge rock on the huge mountain of Buzhao Mountain. However, because it's so huge, from a distance it looks like a mountain peak. Sudang and Silverblade God appeared. 2 more are coming. Are there so many kings coming to the South Mountain Gate this time? Voices came one after another. Sudang looked up at the mountain peak and saw scattered figures standing on the mountain peak. Some looked familiar, some had never been seen before, and some looked outstanding, huge figures similar to giants. So many kings. Silverblade God was also surprised. It should be that all the kings who broke through the 2 mountain gates from the other 3 routes of Buzhao Mountain are here. Sudang transmitted the message. Look there. This is Siphon Peak. Silverblade God pointed to a cliff. Sudang was just looking at the kings on the mountain peak. At this moment, he saw 3 big words on the cliff. Siphon Peak. The kings who climbed the mountain from all directions of Buzhao Mountain gathered here. Most of the kings were arrogant and looked at the kings around them casually. Of course, each of them has an outstanding aura. Sudang also looked at these kings. Qi Huang and Zhao Zu were old acquaintances, and the other kings. He was not too familiar with the other 3 kings, but they all had cold eyes, and many of them had a sense of superiority. Most of those who can get here are 9 crown kings. Sudang also noticed the marks on the foreheads of these kings. Chapter 424, Void evaluates the king's name. There are 4 mountain roads in Buzhao Mountain. On average, if 100 people come to the 4 mountain roads, nearly 400 people can gather here. According to the selection of the first 2 mountain gates, those who can gather here are all extraordinary. Sudang carefully watched the kings next to him. The other kings were also looking at each other. Since they came to participate in the king's decisive battle, they were all opponents. And when they looked at each other, the many soldiers from other mountain roads suddenly found that the kings coming from the mountain road in the direction of the South Mountain Gate intentionally or unintentionally kept away from the ugly Liu Tong with 1 arm. Qi Huang and the other person in a red robe. The ugly one with 1 arm should be the Liu Tong of the Battle Domain Void era, that master said. Be careful of that Liu Tong, he is a lunatic. The kings who looked at Liu Tong all turned their eyes away and dared not look at him anymore, and saw Qi Huang. I just came to Siphon Peak. There were 6 people, including these 2. Even if the second mountain gate was a little stuck, it was obvious that these 2 were the strongest 2 people on the South Mountain Road. It is said that the Dao Mansion spent a lot of money and effort in the Middle Ages to cultivate a kind of sub-king. His strength and qualifications were extraordinary, enough to amaze the 3000 eras. Is it him? Undoubtedly, the most outstanding people who came up from the South Mountain Road were Qi Huang and Liu Tong. Then there were the gun demon Du Gusheng, the goddess Uqiu, etc. Zhao Zu's appearance and demeanor attracted a lot of attention, and Sudang, although there were many discussions among the kings of the South Mountain Gate who came later. But the scope of this discussion was much smaller. It can only be said that he was the kind that seemed mediocre among many powerful kings. The mediocre 9-crown King Sudang. These strong men who can stand on the Siphon Peak have extraordinary visions. It is not only about the rank, but also the perception of strength is very important. Just like Qi Huang, a 7-crown king, many kings dare not underestimate him. And the moment he climbed up the Siphon Peak, he began to watch the battle in the void. In the viewing seats of the various Huangquan roads in the Endless Void era, many life spirits gathered here. Among them, the void of the Middle Ages. Qi Huang, that is Qi Huang of Miliuang ancient country, the second king of Nanshan Road, to climb the Siphon Peak. Qi Huang, the entire Liuang ancient country, including many powerful people in the void who supported Qi Huang. Fairies and goddesses cheered. Being able to quickly break through a road and rush to the Siphon Peak represents strength, and the mountain gate in front of the Siphon Peak is not open to public viewing, because the mountain road is just a screening, and there is no qualification at all. Only the decisive battle on the Siphon Peak is open to public viewing. Who is that ugly king? It seems that Qi Huang is very afraid of him. Many powerful people in the void talked about it. Look at that tall and handsome young man with golden wings on his back and a white robe. His name is Pengayu, and he is the top king of the void in the Shenpeng era. His strength is no less than Qi. In the spectator seats, there are even strong people who publicly introduce him. Of course, this kind of introduction service is also charged. It is not easy to collect information about these kings, and the cost is also very high. However, it is obvious that the strong people who can come to watch the game can afford it. After all, if you can afford the seats, how can you lack this little expense? Qi of our Liuang ancient country is a congenital creature with the bloodline of the divine emperor, immortal emperor, and his body is a divine sword. In terms of bloodline, he is not weaker than Pengayu. A strong man immediately stood up to support Qi. Yes, Qi is invincible. Many powerful people in the void agreed. At this moment, they are no longer divided by national power. They are all on the same front as they are in the same era of the void. Look at the woman with the moonlight phantom floating above her head. That's the goddess Yuling, one of the strongest in Bishan Road, and one of the 6 kings who climbed to the Siphon Peak the fastest. In the empty viewing seats, it seems that the king of Huan Qundao Fu introduced it personally. They are the big boss of this business. Suddenly, countless eyes gathered on the extremely beautiful woman. The faint moonlight was floating from the top of her head. The woman seemed like a god in the moon. She had a graceful figure and beautiful curves. The moonlight covered her like a layer of gauze. It can be seen that the clothes on this woman are extremely expensive and extraordinary, but also very simple. A pair of snow white and slender legs are looming, and the cheeks, neck, collarbones and other parts are exposed. The skin is like cream, and the beautiful scene extends to the towering twin peaks. This is a woman who is born with infinite charm. Her eyebrows and eyes are elegant and clear, as if she is the spirit of heaven and earth. The goddess Yuling. So beautiful. If I meet her, I won't be willing to attack her. Just you? This goddess Yuling has mastered the outline of the origin of the way of life, and has cultivated the empty moon divine art of the sun and moon era void to a very high level. She is known as the peerless goddess of infinite life and death under the moon. Are you worthy of being her opponent? So strong? This is a woman with both beauty and strength, shocking countless eras and voids. Just like the goddess Uqiu, Zhaozu, etc., they are slightly inferior to Yuling, because their beauty may not be bad, but their strength is slightly worse, and their femininity is much worse. This book has been updated recently in #@. Update. Yuling. People can't bear to attack when they see her. Zhaozu. People like Uqiu. People can't help but want to suppress their arrogance when they see them. Speaking of the 6 kings who first climbed the Siphon Peak. Who are these 6 kings? A latecomer in the void asked. The first 6 kings to climb the Siphon Peak were Qi from our medieval era, Liu Tong from the battle domain era, Yuling, the goddess of the sun and moon era, Pengyu from the Shenpeng era, Zhang Zifan from the Jiuao era, and Beifan from the Xianar era. He, the weird young man in a black robe with purple Taoist patterns on his face, is Zhang Zifeng. According to incomplete statistics, he is proficient in 1062 kinds of Taoism, and each of them can exert the power of the top level of the God King. It is said that there was once a top demon of the God King who fought against him. From beginning to end, he used more than 700 kinds of Taoism, and finally killed the demon. The demon didn't even have a chance to resist. In terms of talent alone, Zhang Zifeng is definitely the best among all the kings present. There was an uproar in the void spectator seats. This is a real genius. He can use all kinds of Taoism at will. You may have to study one for your whole life, but he can learn it just by looking at it. The gap is too big. The last of the 6 is the realm god Beifan, the most mysterious king who has triggered the king's order. We only know that he came from the Xianar era. So far, we have never seen him use his full strength. Every time he only exerts a little power, the opponent is defeated without even knowing the foundation. The mysterious Beifan also shows his strength from the side. In the picture, Beifan on the Siphon Peak is as his name suggests. He is dressed in white clothes. He stands on the mountain peak with a handsome face, looking at the sea of clouds in the distance, as if he is thinking about something. This is another peerless king. At this moment, the king's battle is imminent, but he is still distracted. The staff who collected the fees introduced the many strong men on the Siphon Peak one by one. I can be one of the 6 kings in the Middle Ages, and my chances of winning this time are greatly increased. Qi Ji Huayang has an extremely deep foundation, and is definitely not inferior to anyone in the Void era. Who said that? Didn't he lose to the swordsman Sudan? By the way, where is the swordsman? Why haven't I seen the swordsman for so long? Finally, someone asked. Jiuhu Mountain was also paying attention to the silver blade god in the swordsman. The ancient kingdom of divine fire had already learned that the thunder fire immortal was blocked outside the mountain gate, and at this moment they were only paying attention to Sudan. Look, Sudong and the silver blade god are going up the mountain. Finally, Sudong's figure appeared in the picture. So late? You must be kidding. The swordsman is the strongest person in Huangquan in our medieval times. Maybe, the secret method of the soul is at a disadvantage when crossing the mountain road. Many strong men talked about it, some were disappointed, and some defended Sudan. Chapter 425 9 Mountain and Sea Seals. In our Middle Ages, there were a total of 100 kings who were qualified to go to the void of the mountain and sea realm, but now there are only 4 left, namely Qi Ji Huayang, Zhaozu, Silver Knife God and Sudan. Geniuses like Guangai Hao didn't even climb the mountain gate, and Thunderfire Celestial, Zhen, who is good at the secret method of the soul, didn't climb the mountain gate either. The king of the 9 realms ancient country and many powerful people gathered in their luxurious viewing seats, concentrating on watching the 4-sided peak in the picture. According to the information sent back by Zun, the threshold to climb Bushao Mountain is extremely high. Not only them, but also the powerful people of each era of the void are looking forward to seeing the strong people of their own era appear in the void, but in the end they are disappointed. In particular, it is concluded that it is not easy to climb the mountain gate with a strong secret method of the soul. This can also explain why Sudan, with his strength, climbed the 4-sided peak very late. It's normal that he didn't climb the Siphon Peak. His strength limit is there. This time, it depends on Sudan. Yes, it depends on Sudan. Can the Silver Blade God climb the Siphon Peak? Everyone in Jiuhua Mountain Holy Land was surprised. Of course there were also people from the Divine Fire Ancient Country and the 6 Suns Ancient Country. Now the most prestigious one is Qi Ji Huayang. Sudong defeated Qi Ji Huayang unexpectedly at the beginning. Now this terrible king has once again shown his strong side and directly became one of the 6 kings who climbed the Siphon Peak of Bushao Mountain the fastest. Dazzling. Standing on the Siphon Peak, Sudan looked at the king standing in all directions. Each of them had an extraordinary aura. The pure-blooded great light divine Kirin. Sudan looked at a handsome king who was very close to him. The latter had 2 horns on his forehead. The legendary divine Kirin bloodline was the top bloodline in the void of every era, and the bloodline contained the essence of Tao. As long as the pure-blooded divine Kirin bloodline grows up, it will eventually become the top powerhouse in the void. Powerful. Is that the swordsman from the Middle Ages? His Majesty the Great Light God Kirin also looked over. For some reason, he naturally felt a sense of familiarity with this swordsman, whom he had never met. According to my inference, this swordsman should be very strong, but it takes so long to climb the Siphon Peak? It doesn't make sense. There are not many people in the many void eras that can attract his attention, and the swordsman Sudong is one of them. Huh. What a powerful aura. That is. Sudong's heart moved, and he looked up. Suddenly, the entire Siphon Peak was shrouded in a vast pressure. Nearly 400 powerful kings present looked in one direction. A black divine bird flew across the sky and landed on a giant tree above the Siphon Peak. With a flash of black light, it immediately turned into a girl in a black dress. The girl in the black dress had a pretty face, but her pupils were all pitch black, with a hint of evil. The girl in the black dress stood on the top of the tree, her dark eyes looking down below. She waved her jade hand, and a decree appeared out of thin air in her palm. The decree emitted endless golden light, and boundless pressure emanated from the decree. Then she began to read the decree, and her clear voice echoed throughout the Siphon Peak. Inherit the way of heaven and earth, and lead the demeanor of a king. The 462 of you are all kings with outstanding talents in the Taoist temple. Now I will send you to the mountain and sea peak to adventure. In the mountain and sea peak, there are a total of 9 mountain and sea seals and 11 river seals. Those who find the mountain and sea seal will stimulate a rainbow light every hour. If they guard the mountain and sea seal for a month, they will become one of the 9 strongest kings. The river seal will stimulate a dim light every 24 hours. If they guard the river seal for half a month, they will become one of the 11 kings. The rest who have no gains will go where they came from. Adventure in the mountain and sea peak. The Taoist temple can guarantee that the king will not die. Go. This test will not end until the 9 mountain and sea seals and the 11 river seals have their own owners. When the voice fell, many kings on the Siphon Peak were shocked. Mountain and sea seal. River seal. Every hour after winning the mountain and sea seal, a rainbow light will be triggered. This forces the king to fight for it. Sudong thought to himself, if a king gets the mountain and sea seal, he will be attacked in the most terrible way in an instant. There are 2 more river seals than the mountain and sea seal, and the conditions for fighting are slightly looser. It will only trigger a faint light every 24 hours, which gives the king who gets the mountain and river seal time to prepare and rest. However, it is still foreseeable that there are a total of 20 seals of the mountain and sea seal and the river seal. The fight between the 462 people present will surely be a bloody storm. I don't want the mountain and sea seal anymore, but I must win the river seal. Silver Knife God gritted his teeth and sent a voice message to Sudong. It turned out that the Huangquan Fu did not rank them in the end, only the top 20 kings were needed. Well, let's work hard together. Sudong nodded. If it was a one-on-one, he was not afraid of any of the strong men present, but once he won the mountain and sea seal, the most likely thing he would fall into was being besieged by many kings. The 462 kings present, unless there is a huge gap in strength, will surely die if they are besieged. I'm not good at body movement and speed, so even if I win the seal, I will not have a chance to escape. Hold it? Sudong frowned. This battle for the seal made him feel under great pressure. In the sky, the handsome young man retracted his gaze when he saw this. With a wave of his hand, the team moved forward and flew towards the towering top of Mount Buzhao. The top of Mount Buzhao is against the sky. This is not a legend, but a real scene. On the top of Mount Buzhao, there is a sky world. The sky world is surrounded by a mighty river, and in the center is a palace. This book was recently updated in Update. In the palace, there are pretty and graceful fairies flying. There is a fragrant and coveted peach garden, and all kinds of rare birds and animals are wandering. Surrounded by colorful clouds, one day in the palace is equivalent to 1 year in the lower world. There is endless spiritual energy gathering and surging in the palace all year round. The magnificent palace shone like crystal. The handsome young man and his party arrived outside the heavenly palace. The full-egged black beast stopped, and many attendants also stopped. The handsome young man stood up and flew to one of the huge palaces casually. The heavenly soldiers and beautiful maids in the palace saluted respectfully when they saw the handsome young man. Greetings to the Lord of Pan's Hang Mountain. This handsome young man has a high status. He is a very powerful Lord King in the Yellow Springs Taoist Palace. The Lord of Pan's Hang Mountain flew all the way into the palace. In the palace, a middle-aged man dressed as a Taoist sat in the center, surrounded by a group of clergymen. They were still pointing and commenting on something. Master Wang, the handsome young man said. Greetings to the Lord King of Pan's Hang Mountain. Many clergymen saluted respectfully. The Taoist sitting in the center also looked up. Brother Zhao, are you also interested in seeing these kings of this session? The Taoist smiled. Yes. The handsome young man flew to a seat and sat down. His eyes fell to the front, in a huge jade mirror, reflecting the figures of more than 400 kings on the four-sided peak. This time, there are more than 300 people who are stronger than the top god kings, and there are dozens of them with extraordinary foundations, destined to have a long way to go. Master Wang sighed. Those with good foundations are destined to achieve great success in the future. This time I got the news that the eldest brother asked me to personally screen this batch of kings and pick out a few good seedlings. The handsome young man was shocked. Elder brother? Yes, in recent years, those guys who came out of purgatory have become more and more restless, challenging our bottom line again and again, and even openly interfering with reincarnation. Master Wang narrowed his eyes slightly. They deserve to be killed. The murderous intent in the handsome young man's grey eyes suddenly surged. Purgatory is getting stronger and stronger. We must also find a few good seedlings to cultivate. If we can cultivate another strong man like Brother Zao, it will be a great blessing for our Taoist mansion. The Taoist smiled. The handsome young man nodded. Let's start. Send them to Shanhei Peak. On the Jade Mirror, the scene changed, and more than 400 kings were all blown away by a gust of wind, soaring straight up. They landed directly on another mountain peak. Thanks to Wen Zhao, the last number 3431, the happy fat boy, the virtual world master, the last number 3938, the hand is a sword, the sky city, the free Dragon Ball world, eternity, and destruction, and the sky sword holy spirit god for the rewards. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.